Can you turn it down a little bit, please?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey there, Nelson. Everyone.
Good evening.
Angel, do we have quorum?
Not just yet.
We'll get about 2 more minutes and then we'll get started and then we'll circle back.
Okay. Have quorum now, Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have enough.
Just so,
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. I hope all is well. With that said, I'd like to entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved, Xavier.
Second, Jessica Elliott.
Is there a second? I'm going to take a vote by acclamation. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. With that, I'm going to move it along to announcements, and I'm going to let Angel Muscade make any announcements in terms of the meeting protocol, and we will continue from there.
Sure, no. So we need to do the attendance really quickly, just for the record. So I'll call the roll.
Okay,
Jose Altamirano,
Present.
Adem Brija, Jessica Elliott,
Present.
Marissa Mack,
Present.
Judith Febraro, David Giordano, Nelsa,
here.
Xavier,
Here.
Jeremiah, Stephen, Jason,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Judith,
Here.
thank you. You have quorum.
Okay, thank you so much. In my haste to start the meeting, obviously, I forgot the attendance. Thank you, Angel. Is there any announcements, Angel, that you would like to make in terms of the meeting protocol or moving forward?
Sure. I'll read the protocol slides, and then there are a couple announcements after. Until further notice, all meetings of Community Board 11 will be conducted by video conference. Links to register to attend the video conferences for each of our respective meetings are published on the meetings calendar on our website, cb11m.org. To avoid crosstalk and help the meeting run effectively, panelists and attendees are asked to keep their microphones on mute when they are not speaking. It is also helpful to utilize headphones. Those participating by phone can dial *6 to unmute. If you wish to share a question or comment, you may do so by utilizing the raise hands function. Those participating by phone can dial *9 to raise their hand. Our staff will monitor these requests to ensure that hands are recognized in turn. Questions left in the chat will not be recognized. Board members will be called on first, then attendees. Please keep your questions or comments brief and on topic.
Thank you so much.
Then we had just two announcements that were listed on the agenda that I could read out here if you'd like.
Okay,
So first, our housing committee, along with the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, will be hosting a virtual housing resource fair on March 31st at 6:30 p.m. The information to participate is on our website and will be shared in our weekly newsletter. Second, a public scoping meeting for the Las Raíces East Harlem project will be held virtually on March 31st at 4 p.m. Beginning at 4 p.m. The program will start at 4 p.m. Formal presentations at 5 p.m. Written comments on the draft scope of work will be accepted by the lead agency, HPD, until the close of business on April 12th. Copies of the environmental assessment statement, positive declaration, and draft scope of work are available for download at HPD's environmental review webpage and the current projects page on CB11's website.
thank you so much, Angel. With that, we're gonna move to informational updates. So just to give you a sense of, today we had a meeting at the Manhattan Borough President's General Board meeting, and Joe was there, and he was talking about the funding that was coming to New York via the federal funding legislation that has just passed. So it's good news for New York, and hopefully it's good news for our businesses. During that meeting, during my report, I brought up the fact that vaccinations are still lacking. I discussed the fact that a moratorium is being discussed at the community board in terms of certain social service programs. We also talked about the fact that MTA task force will be forming now that the project seems to be gathering some speed. And I also brought up a concern that we discussed internally about the reopening when COVID is not so much of a threat. Does that mean in terms of community boards that are housed in fronts, as opposed to buildings that have security and have established protocols to keep those residents safe? So that's an ongoing discussion, both internally for us, because it is important that we safeguard the staff as well as public and ensure that we're working appropriately and as safe as possible, because not everyone get the vaccine and not everyone is following the protocols established. So that was a concern, and that was something that I brought up today. Xavier Santel was also part of that meeting. So Xavier, if you would like to say a little bit about that meeting, and then we will see if Angel has other information updates, or anyone would like to give us more updates, then we can open it up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, it was a very chock-a-block full meeting. We were really glad to have Schumer come and follow up on the passage of the bill, and he highlighted a lot of areas where we were able to get traction. I reported back specifically on having been throughout the entire community and doing vertical runs through a lot of our housing and all throughout the area where we have a lot of homebound seniors who, one, don't have access, can't get out. They're able to get food delivered, but they have concerns about getting the vaccine, not about whether they should take it or not, but whether or not how to get it to be delivered to them. And a lot of the people that were disseminating information out through the community are not going into these buildings to hand out the cards. So that was something that I discussed. I also addressed the incident that happened here in our community. For those that know where Proti is on 101st and Lexington, one of their workers had an assault. And on March 6th, we convened with a bunch of electeds to speak out against that, to stop Asian hate. I found out about it literally, I got a text at 3 a.m. But we wanted to show our solidarity. It's actually my son's favorite Thai restaurant. So when, had to be there, but it was also right across the street from our open play street on 101st and Lexington that was very popular this summer. So here we have two diametrically opposed experiences in our community. And I impressed upon everyone that we have to, we have to do more to realize that we're not individual tribes, we're the human tribe. And that we're human, that's what connects us. And I think that was the larger idea I want to impress, and about just making sure we're doing our level best within our networks in the community to disseminate information, because there are a lot of people who don't know what's going on and how to get resources still after a year on. So that was my report, and I'm pleased to go through areas if anyone wants to volunteer with me and get out in the field. Thank you.
Angel, do you have any additional updates that you'd like to share?
Sure. So I got a call yesterday from our contact over at Mount Sinai Hospital. They've informed us that they're, getting more and more supply of vaccine. And what they're doing is they're reaching out to organizations in the community to help them collect lists of folks that are interested in getting the vaccine. At this time, they're not able to open it, super wide, because they just don't have the supply to meet the demand that will surely be forthcoming. So if any of you all have names that you of folks that want to get on the list to be vaccinated, please shoot them my way. The staff and I will be collecting names, and we've been reaching out to CBOs in the community to also help us collect names, and of course targeting folks that are currently eligible per the state's mandate, per the state's rules.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else who has an informational update? If you do, please raise your hand and we will call you. I don't see any.
Jessica Elliott has
Jessica
her,
Elliott,
and Jessica Morris.
I'm a
has her
bit
hand up.
slow.
It's okay.
Jessica Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring attention. I know I had emailed it out and we've spoken about it before previously a few times, but the ULI Urban Plan for Public Officials is coming up on April, April 16th, sorry. And it's a sort of like half-day event. Carly has really helped me with disseminating this to our public officials. So I think we'll have a pretty good showing, but I think if anyone on the community board wants to attend, it would be a great experience. But let me know if you're interested and I'll forward you the details, but it's filling up fast. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Jessica
Morris.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess we're a 1-2 punch with the Jessicas. I guess I have a follow-up question regarding the vaccine distribution. Has there been an inquiry or a kind of opening up the dialogue with the public hospital system about bringing vaccinations to NYCHA locations. You know, Xavier, you seem like you're embedded there. My day job right now is with Health and Hospitals as part of the test and trace work. I'm not sure, you know, I think reaching people is going to be hard. And there was a point in testing where it was clear that bringing the test to the person was necessary. So if meeting people where they are is what will get access where it's needed, you know, I think asking that question and pushing for it sooner than too late or later is really a great step in the direction that would serve a lot of people, not only in East Harlem, but also throughout the NYCHA community across the city, I am sure. So please let me know if there is any way I can help support or make a connection or ask a question.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate that. I will tell you that in terms of bringing vaccinations tonight, there have been mobile vans that have worked with, let's say, Wagner and other NYCHA projects to other NYCHA developments. You can tell my age when I used to work projects. Other NYCHA developments to help the seniors and other vulnerable populations get vaccinated. It's not a regular occurrence. It's, I think, more irregular. So I think this is something that we can look into, and we'll definitely get in contact with you in any way that we can have that conversation. So I want to thank you for that.
Sure.
Are there any, I'm sorry?
I said sure, Nilsa, thank you.
Okay. I only have one piece working, so bear with me, folks. It's always an issue. Okay, are there any more questions from Xavier? Xavier, you have your hand up?
Yeah. I just wanted to say is that what I do have is information. Yes, and thank you for replying back in the chat. We'll talk, and I'll kind of give them more in depth. But Representative Espaillat is trying to coordinate buses to bring people out, but there's some people who can't leave their homes. So that's a larger part of it. So thank you. And definitely, this is what it is, bringing the team together. So I'll have a chat with you and see if there are ways, because we need people to actually go door to door. So thank you.
Are there any more questions from the committee members? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to a member of the public, Naomi Goldberg-Haas. Ms. Haas, you have your hand up? Okay.
I can, do you hear me? I can't.
Yes, we can hear you.
Cameras don't work. We were just here to announce with Ellen Simon and my partner, we're going to give classes for seniors to improve health and quality of life on 103rd Street. We want to ask the committee's approval from you guys. It's a program called Open Culture that we're working with. It was New York City's program for open culture, to have classes on the street outside for older people, older adults.
So, Ms. Haas, if you have a flyer that you'd like us to consider for posting in our newsletter or
Sure.
website,
Well,
please feel free so we can review. And if it's something that we feel we can include, we will most definitely do so.
we would be really happy.
No,
if
so
we did.
they're on the agenda later on during new business. They have 3 different dates, two different sets of dates that they're applying for the Open Culture Program.
So we should get to talk about it later. So we
Yes.
should talk about, okay.
All right.
Certainly.
Okay. I'm
I'll get them.
sorry. I may not have my agenda, may not reflect them. I may have printed an old agenda.
I
so
apologize on my
apologies.
behalf.
No
I
worries.
apologize myself.
No, not at all. So, not at all. At least now I have a sense. Thank you, Angel, for clarifying that. If there are no more questions, we will move on to discussions and presentations. And letter A is the continuing discussion regarding the East Harlem Resiliency Study.
So we invited George Janes in to talk about these first two items, and he's on the call.
Great. George,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank
It's
you.
always a pleasure to hear you.
Good to see everyone. Sure. So I don't have a presentation on any of this, but I will speak to the East Harlem Resiliency Study. We became aware that there was this document called the East Harlem Resiliency Study, from which they made a very, very small pamphlet called the East Harlem Vision Plan for Resiliency or something like that. It was like 25 pages long. And we knew from talking to people who worked on it that there was a much bigger study behind this. We asked around and we foiled it. The Department of Parks actually eventually gave it to us, but it was mostly redacted. About 90% of it was redacted. It was a 280-page study that looked at potential resiliency measures that would be taken in East Harlem or could be taken in East Harlem. It was written in 2018 and never released. And so right now we've appealed their decision to redact most of it. Ironically, I would like to say this is that much of what's included unredacted is all of the community engagement that the city participated in. And so it's well documented with photos of them engaging the community, and then the rest of it is blacked out. Like, it's astounding. So right now, you know, the borough president graciously supported our appeal, appealed directly to Commissioner Silver of Parks to try to get it. They were unmoved. They made that decision in January. It is possible to file an Article 78, though we will likely lose. We've tried to get it through HUD, who funded this, and they have not been helpful either. So there's a lot of information out there. I mean, really, the question on the East Harlem Resiliency Study is, you know, there was a lot of things proposed in there. We know this, that were very expensive and very dramatic. And so instead of actually publishing it and setting expectations, the city decided to bury it and go forward with other resiliency projects that are not in East Harlem, which was kind of disappointing. So, I mean, that's you know, that's all I've got to really say about that right now. I mean, I guess maybe there's some direction from you all if we need to, if we should start, if we should continue to push this to try to get it through one way or another. Commissioner Silver has announced he is leaving, so maybe we can make another appeal to him directly to see if he would release this study so that you all can understand what the threats are and how they could be mitigated.
George, a quick question. Was the councilwoman aware of this, or our elected officials? I see that Gail Brewer supported the request to Commissioner Silva for us to get a redacted report, but I'm wondering if the other elected officials from East Harlem were aware of this.
On all of our materials, on all of our foils, or certainly the appeal, I copied everybody who could possibly help. I know.
Did anybody answer back other than Gail?
No.
No. Okay.
Not that I'm aware. You know, they might have. You know, listen, I'm a nobody, Nilsa, right? So they would have not necessarily gotten me.
You're a giant to the community boards. Don't you ever say you're a nobody. You're a very big somebody.
My point is that they may have reached out directly to the commissioner, or, you know, being made aware of this issue, they might have just kept going, right, without necessarily contacting me. But the only person I'm aware of who supported this and who was very gracious is Gail, and Matthew Washington himself was the guy that put the letter together and made it all happen. And, you know, he has strong connections with the community and the community board.
George. Jessica, you have a question? Jessica Elliott?
Yes, not a question. I just wanted to, one, thank George again for all of his incredible work. And then I personally think that this resiliency study would be incredibly helpful for us, especially as they're coming out to, with the environmental justice for all reports. East Harlem is a environmental justice zone. We just talked about in land use, the Sendero Verde project, and thank you to Angel for sending that over to EDC to look at the potential to implement some sort of interior drainage strategy in that location, because I think there's probably a wealth of solutions in this document. I personally only know of like a handful of overarching like strategies that we could do in the neighborhood when, you know, obviously we're dealing with the infrastructure on the waterfront, but there's a lot of interior drainage issues that is an issue as well. So if we could have the tools to better understand how we can inform, you know, projects like on infrastructure and developments moving forward, that would be incredibly helpful for us and promote the safety of our neighborhood in flood events. So I'm in full support of continuing to pursue.
Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I've heard about this discussion in a few different committees. What's the main committee that this was presented on? Was it Parks or Land Use? Parks. Then my second question was the commissioner. Which commissioner are we talking about?
Commissioner of Parks, Mitchell
Parks.
Silver.
So Parks. I recommend that this be managed, or, you know, a resolution come out of Parks possibly to see how we could address this with the issues that were brought up.
Will do.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Jessica Morris?
Yeah, I think resilience is one of those funny things that while Parks does have, ownership of this document that we're having difficulty getting, I think it's clear that there are more agencies involved, kind of breadth and depth of ownership here. If there are, I think land use as a committee to also support and weigh in if there is, if that matters. I mean, for the resolution to come out of Parks is great. Of course, I think you've been working on this. I also, question whether, the consultants responsible for producing some of this work are also on the sort of the back end of developing the research. And if there is something that is being, withheld, if there is pressure and demand from the community, that there should be recourse to action. I know you all have been discussing this for a long time. I guess what I'm saying is, please let me know what I, from the thinking about DEP and the relationship to the road, I think it is much bigger than just Parks. So if there are other committees that need to support and weigh in, please don't hesitate to cross those boundaries and work together.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any more questions? Jason, I see your hand up. Is that from before?
Yeah, I just, the conversation seems to need to be delved deeper, and like as what was stated, the reason why I asked where this report comes from, what commissioner, is so that way we can start to have a plan of advocacy and to figure out what are the best means and methods to do that. My loud thought with assigning it to a committee is so that way something substantive could come out of this discussion. So it's not just brought up today and it kind of lingers. Because like ignorantly for myself, I don't see what's the, I would want to understand the alarm and the concern, like it was brought up that the community is asking for this. And my thought is what community outside of it being advised to us by our consultant? Is it an issue by the community-based organizations? is there a threat that our constituents need to be informed about? How deep do we want to go with this campaign? And I think if it's discussed at the committee level, it definitely will start coming to fruition. So I will lower my hand. That was my last thought. Thank you.
Can I comment on that just for a second, Nilsa?
Yes, George.
Okay, so one of the so I know a lot of the people that worked on this report, and I had conversations with the people who were working on the report. And one of the things that, you know, I kind of knew, but was really explained to me was the reason that downtown got hit so hard and other places got hit hard during Sandy, and East Harlem was relatively spared, was that it hit the time of day it hit, and the fact that it hit low tide in East Harlem and high tide downtown, and that if it were 6 hours difference, the floodwaters in East Harlem would have approached Central Park, and the Lexington Avenue line would have been completely underwater. It would have been, and also Hunts Point and the Bronx would have been completely gone too, which would have been the food distribution system of New York City. And that was 6 hours difference. It was the luck of the moon. And so there are decisions being made about coastal resiliency protection right now. Billions of dollars are being spent right now. And one of the highest risk communities are getting bupkis, right? There's nothing happening in East Harlem, or virtually nothing happening in East Harlem, where you have the East Side Coastal Resiliency measures, where $1 billion is being spent downtown right now, shovels in the ground. And that decision was made with no consideration of risk, none at all. It was made, yes, they are high risk, they suffered a lot, but they are higher risk than East Harlem. They are high risk, but East Harlem is also high risk. And we're spending, millions of dollars on resiliency measures in Breezy Point, for God's sake, right? Breezy Point, what, like there are like 12 houses out there? I mean, like, to me, it's like, I don't understand how these decisions were made, right? There were a bunch of decisions that were made about who's getting all this money for these protections to protect neighborhoods. And those decisions were made, we weren't at the table. We didn't even know where the table was. I mean, when they say we, I don't know. You didn't know either. No, but none of us knew. And then suddenly, like, all this money starts getting spent and we don't really understand what happened. What happened, well, one of the things that happened was this report was buried. That was one of the things that happened. And so you could not advocate for yourselves. And, I kind of hate the system we have in New York, but essentially it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And the way that you become a squeaky wheel is you inform yourself with information. And this was in 2018 that this came out, and that was when it was buried, right? And so you didn't have it. I didn't have this information. None of us had this information. And when, we became aware of it, it was just like, oh, well, that's one reason why these decisions were made without us being informed of what the risks were. And so that's why I think, listen, this is my opinion, is that information is power. Information it informs your advocacy. It makes it stronger. And, you need it to be effective in advocacy for things like this.
George, in terms of what you were speaking, I know there's a lot of different programs out there where you feed in information and it spits out information, yeah. Right? Is there a tool? This report is redacted, and it's redacted because, again, this community gets the short end of the stick, and they figure that we don't know enough how to go out and get information. And they figure we won't ask the right questions, and this is just a continuance of, well, we understand that there's danger there, but they don't understand what the danger is. But these other people have more danger, so we're just going to deal with that when it happens. Is there some kind of a program where if we input all the things that happened on that day, but at a different time, that's 6 hours later, so that it would then spit out that the water would go to Central Park,
Yeah,
that
there's
Hunts Point could get flooded. Because I think that us doing that research can validate our going after that report and what was the reasons of redacting a report and keeping it from community members that at the very least should be planning for their own safety.
right. Okay, so to answer the question, so there is an academic who was quoted, who studies all of this stuff. I forget exactly his name or his affiliation, but he was quoted in the article that appeared in the press a month or so ago about this, or two months ago, whenever it was. And essentially, they ran all the models, right? And also there is a after action report published during the Bloomberg administration that says as much, right? That basically says what I've just said about risk. So this is not an unknown thing. We can get that guy to on the record on this. I can get his name and get it to you. It's easy enough. But Nilsa, I will say this, is that I don't think it's like some crazy conspiracy. I mean, essentially what I think has happened, and through off the record conversations I've had with people, is basically the resiliency solutions in East Harlem are hard, right? They're very, very hard. It's not as simple as building a flood wall along the FDR, because a big worry is about inundation. Like once the water gets in, it has to be able to get out. And so you have this bathtub effect from a seawall along the FDR that you don't have downtown, apparently, because of topography issues. And so because of that difficult solution, they're like, this is going to be really hard. We're going to need some real engineering and planning expertise. Well, let's just bury this because it's just going to take a while, cost a lot of money, and deal with things that are lower hanging fruit. And and if they released it, they'd be setting expectations. Like setting expectations they were not able to meet, right? They couldn't meet those expectations. There wasn't enough time, not enough money. They only have so much to protect some places and not others. So
but our community has had issues with the Esplanade that has been falling into the river. On 106th Street, we have that major spot that floods right when you're getting off the FDR Drive. You see more crumbling structure in the Esplanade in our section than you see in other sections. And while I do agree with you that it may not be a conspiracy, but I think it's a long-standing way of dealing with communities that are not as important on their radar or in their minds don't affect fiscally the soundness of the city and may have too many problems. And instead of solving piecemeal, it's just easier to bury those issues. So it may not be a conspiracy, but it's actually a well established pattern whenever something gets too difficult to resolve in certain communities. And so that's why it would be very interesting to have something that showed if there was a 6-hour difference or at a different day, different time, just what we would be dealing with, because by that time it's going to be very late and lives can hang in the balance.
Yeah, I'll get that for you, Nilsa.
Thank you.
That should be no problem. And
I appreciate you.
And to follow up on what you just said, the Esplanade has fallen into the river, and they've committed $284 million to rebuild it. And part of me is thinking, well, in 5 years' time, are we going to be ripping that out to put in a resiliency measure there? And I just like, part of me is like thinking, why are we doing this piecemeal, as you just said, right? Why couldn't you come up with a comprehensive solution that dealt with all the problems together? Well, part of the reason is we don't have the information.
Exactly. It's a plot. Are there any other questions Board, George. Jessica Elliott, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Thanks, Nelsa. I just wanted to sort of wrap up, I guess, that we've been talking about this for many months in parks, and we've had George come to present, we've had parks come to present. We're getting information slowly over time. So learning about the resiliency report and then the FOIL, and waiting to hear about what George could find on that. I do think a resolution would be great, and I appreciate I think that there is cross collaboration potential there. I think our committee is looking at another resolution. I think what's interesting about this is there's a lot of overlapping things that are going on. Not only the resiliency study, but the work on the Esplanade, the environmental justice reports, the zoning for coastal resiliency at land use. So there's a lot of information that's coming forward about all this that we can start to build into that. But I think there's also community support. Obviously, the Friends of the East River Esplanade acknowledges with us that just doing work on the waterfront isn't going to solve the totality of the issue. And so I think we're definitely pushing forward on this, and appreciate any input different committees have. But thank you to George, and we'll keep pushing this forward in parks.
And I would suggest that once we have a resolution and the support of the other committees and whatever body of work comes out of that then we're going to market this to the other community boards so that we can get all other 11 community boards to sign on to the fact that community board 11 should have information that directly relates how we deal with our public and our community. And that these 12 community boards, which since I've been chair, have worked very hard to work as a unit. And I can say that the 12 community boards are working nicely. We're very supportive of each other so that we can try to get them all to sign on as well. I'm also going to reach out to Councilwoman Diana Ayala and ask her if she was copied on something, if she actually saw it, and if not, is there value for her to know that her community could be underwater depending on a certain storm, a certain time, and how will this community prep for an emergency that can actually affect lives? I won't say it like that, but I'll just ask the question in a more thoughtful, reasoned way when I've had more coffee. George, I want to thank you for that presentation. I'm going to check if there are any more questions, and if not, then I'm going to ask you to update us. I do see a question from a member of the public, so I will allow that question. Ms. Brenda Black, do you hear me, and can you ask your question?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Black.
First of all, thank you everyone, and thank you in the community board for all that you do for our neighborhood. I'm a longtime resident for 20 years. And I have a question / request. It goes back to what two of the gentlemen were saying when they were speaking about the community not having information and the community not being aware. A silver lining of COVID, I guess, is that these meetings are now on Zoom. Even though I've lived in the neighborhood for a long time, I was never aware of you guys. And a part of that is my responsibility to seek out the information. But I think it would be helpful, and this is where my request comes in, is if you guys could brainstorm some way to try and get this information out more to the public and to our neighbors. Like, I don't know if we go old school with flyers, or if once a month or every 6 weeks we set up a table somewhere to let people know you guys exist and the things that are going on, and to go online, because you're so accessible now online, which is great. But I don't even, if you don't know that you're online, you don't go online, to follow the Zoom. Yes. So that's what I wanted to say, and I just wanted to say thank you. And if this request I have, if there's any way that I could help, please let me know. I'm on social media. You can find me, and I've been attending meetings, and I plan to continue to attend meetings. So that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Black. Well, I'm glad that you've been in the community so long. I've been here longer. God, I'm old. But I wanted to tell you
Me
that
too.
we do have we do have a newsletter that I can say that has been put together well by our staff, especially our assistant district manager, Carly Wine. So that goes out on a weekly basis. We do flyer. We do put up notices. Well, pre-COVID, we would put up notices, and we actually would table at events, and we would actually have community board members table at events. However, I do hear everything that you're saying, and it sounds like we can be more visible, especially during the COVID year. And we don't know how that's going to affect us going forward. We're looking at continuing potential meetings in a hybrid fashion. I'm glad that you are actually logging in and you're getting to see our executive team, every single chair that we have and vice chair is very committed to the committees that they are working on, in addition to the rest of our community board. We are very, very fortunate in that we have very committed staff who care about the community. Angel Muscane being the district manager. And George James has been our planner for several years. And I will tell you that the information that he gives us and he ferrets for us and the reports that he writes has made it that every other community board has sort of stolen him from us, but he's still really ours. And so we look forward to your continued attendance to our meetings, for you getting the word out. You can always promote us and give us a good word on your media pages. And I'm going to let Xavier Santiago is our vice chair. You will see him a lot in the community as we open up. And Angel, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit in terms of our outreach methods for the community board.
Angel, if you want to go ahead, I'll supplement from after you.
David, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you, Brenda, for being here. That's
Thank you.
step one. And this is just, it truth speaks to power of this and this engagement. As many of our leadership here on this committee can tell you, prior to COVID, like 2019, Nilsa and I basically covered 100% of the community events, family days, street closures, things like that. We still, even though the term gets tossed around, yes, we're volunteer, but we're connected in the community. And you're taking step one. Thank you, Jessica Elliott, our Environment, Open Space and Parks Chair, said, hey, you could join as a public member and you get an application in. And I would definitely recommend that. And we have on our website a lot of that information, but any way we can improve, I'm very much open for it. I'm literally was all over 96 Lexington Park at Madison and 5th today, despite the lovely weather. So again, depending on where you live, I've attended TA association meetings that for the most part had gone offline because of COVID, but now they've come to the Zoom world and we're trying to connect. And we also saw that disconnect with COVID where people were not able to get that information. So it's incumbent upon all of us to be that community-based solution, and just being here and raising this is what we need more of, and then we can plug in all the holes and find areas where we can work together. So I've sent you my email.
Yeah, I see that here, and I'm trying to copy and paste it while I'm Zoom, but if for some reason I'm not able to or I lose it, is it on the website?
No, but it's very simple. It's just vice chair at CB11M for Manhattan.org. It's pretty straightforward. And again, very pleased to have an offline chat and try to find ways we can get you connected. So I won't take much more time. I'll let Angel take and Nilsa take back. Reclaim your time, please.
Thank you, everyone.
You guys covered it. That was it.
Okay. That short but brief comment was from our very capable district manager, Angel Muscane, who works very diligently on all aspects of our website, including the translation pages, including the newsletter and everything that has to do with the office. So we're very fortunate to have Angel and Carly and Marlene as our staff. With that, we're gonna move to number B, the Harlem Greenway link. George and Jessica, take it away. George, will you be giving us a report on that?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Jessica, do you want me to go first or shall you?
Go ahead. I'll follow up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so, well, all right. So one of the things that I think is important for folks to understand is that I presented a little bit about this at a committee meeting, is that the Harlem Greenway link, which is this new park that is proposed from 125th to 132nd Street along the river, is in part being used as, or at least being proposed to be used as replacement parkland for Marx Brothers Playground. Some of you might remember that Marx Brothers Playground at 2nd Avenue and 96th Street was part of the big ECF project that involved building 3 new schools and a big apartment building, and essentially using the playground as for development rights, which you can't do for a park. And so they have to replace the parkland that was Marx Brothers Playground somehow, and they propose using the Harlem Greenway link to do that. But the Harlem Greenway link is promised in the East Harlem Points of Agreement, where the city has said that they're going to make this park and invest $100 million into it to essentially as part of the payment for agreeing to the East Harlem rezoning. So I think that's something, number one, you should be aware of. And then number two, the other issue is something that is kind of in the weeds, but I'm gonna try to share. Can I actually share my screen for a second, Angel? All right, let me show you one document here. Okay, so I am sharing you something right now called the city map. The city map is very important because if you ever want to make changes to the city map, you actually a ULURP action. It shows you where the streets are, what the curb elevations are, shows you where the bulkheads and pier headlines are. It shows you like really basic stuff about the city. And what it does is in many places, it shows you where the parks are. And when we say the term mapped parkland, that means it appears on this map saying it's a park. Now, Marx Brothers Playground, which was over here, never appeared on this map. It was not mapped parkland, and it was up to a judge. The city said it wasn't parkland, and it was up to a judge who decided the lawsuit on that to say it was parkland. And that judge said that Marx Brothers Playground was parkland and it needed to be replaced. But the city was able to move forward saying, well, it's not parkland because it didn't appear on this map. And so one of the things that my understanding, I missed the meeting, but I read the minutes of Jessica's meeting, was that Parks came and told her committee that they would be dedicating the East River Greenway as parkland. Dedicating does not mean mapping. Those are two different things. Dedicated parkland does, in theory, have park protections, but you know, if it doesn't appear on the map, the city map, you never actually know what's going to happen. And you know, I like to point out is that jointly operated playgrounds like Marx Brothers Playground, they've actually been redeveloped in places. Like they're in Queens. We have new buildings on what people used to be considered parkland, never went through alienation, never went through anything. The city just went ahead and did it. And they couldn't do that if it had the word park on this map, right? And so one of the things I've been saying to Jessica and her committee is that you know, my suggestion to you all if you really want this park and to have it park protections, is you want it to appear as park on the city map. And in fact, the portion north of 132nd Street is mapped parkland, right? So it would just be extending the mapped parkland portion down to 125th Street. The city's not going to want to do that. I will volunteer.
No, I know that. Jessica, is there something you would like to add on the points that George just made before I ask a question?
Just really quickly, I think that George helped clear some things up for me, even because I thought when they responded that they would be dedicating it as parkland, I thought that was solving the issue. So it's good to know that there's still additional loopholes, and I don't always have all the information. So thank you, George. One element is just the Harlem Greenway link is going to have a lot of maintenance paths. There's going to be a pedestrian off ramp off the RFK bridge. So there's going to be a lot of these additional things that are going to take up a lot of space on the site. So I think we'll just have to keep up with the project to determine what that is, what it means, how much of the park is it taking up, and I don't know, George. I know we've talked about the the pathway to dedication of park space, and it seems like a laborious process. So just in terms of, we've been fighting for many years for this Richard Toussaint Park and pathway. If it gets built and then for some reason there's some sort of loophole like George is describing he had went through with other projects in other neighborhoods, that we wouldn't want to lose this park. And I'm not sure as a board what we would want to do in order to help protect it.
Thank you, Jessica. You touched on one of the questions that I was going to ask. George, in terms of what you've mentioned and in terms of the work that Jessica and her committee are doing, and in terms of what this community board needs to do to advocate, you did mention that to get on the city map, a unit of action must be taken for change in the city map. I heard that correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of us fighting for something like that, in your experience, what are the steps for us? Obviously, we would need to have a clear understanding of what is the dedicated as opposed to the mapped, which you have mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What this community board will fight for and accept. I would, obviously we should have some type of a public session where the public would weigh in terms of this particular park, what we would like to see, the importance of it being mapped, the history of other sites being designated as parkland, but redeveloped. And so that has been lost. In terms of a process, what are your suggestions in moving forward? I mean, obviously the goal is to get this mapped.
Yes.
And have it, as you mentioned, it is already 132nd is on the map. So it's getting it extended down to 125th. So in terms of that, what are your recommendations in order to start this effectively?
Okay, so if we want the city to map it as parkland, I mean, the first thing to do is to ask them and make certain that they know that you understand the difference between dedicated and mapped, right? They don't listen. This is very, very into the weeds, right? This is the kind of thing that most people on a community board has no idea of, right? And I think what you should do, I mean, I think the first thing to do would be to invite Parks back into the committee to essentially ask them to explain why they don't want to map it, because they would have said mapped parkland if they meant mapped parkland. They didn't say it, and they have no intention to do that. because, you know, Nilsa, it takes time and money, and it also means it's less flexible for them. So, you know, one of the things I've been saying is, you know, it's in this area with all this infrastructure, the Triborough, the FDR, the Harlem River Drive, right? You know, it's like if they want to rebuild something, they would need.
They can just take it away.
Pardon?
They can just take it away.
They can take it away temporarily, for instance, like what the MTA did. But, you know, the MTA had that site for over 10 years, right? Temporary is a long time sometimes in New York City. And so they may not have to, you know, I just, you know, I worry about it. I just know that you're going to get extra protections if it appears on the city map. It's not saying that parkland that doesn't appear on the city map has no protections, but very often you've got to actually sue them to get the city to enforce them. And that's something that, you know, most places can't do. And so I guess my point is, number one, start small, get to parks, ask them, you know, we'd really like to see this as mapped parkland, get them to explain why they're not going to do that, and then go back to the points of agreement where you have this commitment, and see if, you know, you could use that language. I haven't looked at it recently, to see if you could use that as an argument for saying, well, it should be mapped parkland. And then, you know, every time you see parks, you should say something to them. I mean, otherwise you got to go through an application for you all to do it yourself, which, you know, is a bit, you know, it's a big pain in the butt, right? And the city is set up to do it, and community boards aren't. So, you know, I would just keep pushing them, you know, using your electeds, using your connections there to see if you could get. This is mapped parkland, first-class parkland, not second-class parkland.
I just want to make a quick observation that we are dealing with parks. First, the East Harlem Resiliency Study, and now the fact that this was dedicated and not mapped suggestions. So I think we're going to have our work cut out for them, but we may be pleasantly surprised if we do our work and have almost like a legalese type of presentation done where it shows that we understand the difference. So I think that that's why you are always so valuable, because you help explain all the differences, as we are may not always know what it is.
Sure.
So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to check if there are any questions. Jessica Elliott?
Thank you, Nelsa. I just wanted to say that it is parks, but it's actually EDC.
Oh.
EDC said that they're going to be transferring it to parks at the completion of construction, which could be, you know, 5-10 years from now or more. And then at that point, they've said, you know, I think we talked about this over email, but that they wouldn't be able to name the park until it's under parks control. So that's why they've been pushing the pathway, because the pathway can be named at any time. There's one other point I wanted to make, just because we mentioned the points of agreement. They said that they don't have enough money for a comfort station at the Harlem Greenway link. And we talked a little bit about the comfort station that was in the points of agreement for Crack is Whack Park. And since it's so adjacent, looking into how we can to make sure that money is spent towards a comfort station, and if it's can be incorporated into the project or however that wants to happen, but that they need to fulfill the obligations of the points of agreement for that comfort station, wherever it is.
Thank you, Jessica. So now, George, I'm going to come back to you for a quick question based on what Jessica said. The fact that EDC, and I've had my dealings with EDC, the fact that EDC has, this is basically under their control right now, and will transfer to parks after construction, which is why Jessica mentioned that they have been pushing for the Toussaint Way as opposed to the Toussaint Park, where we will want both. But in terms of the way we go about trying to get the map parkland, does that preclude us trying to get this as map parkland now because it is under EDC's auspices?
I'm going to think about that for a second. I don't think so. I don't think so. It wouldn't be considered mapped parkland under the zoning resolution because, or public parkland under the zoning resolution, but under the city map, it doesn't matter who owns it. It's just that it appears park. So it wouldn't function as a park yet, but it would appear on the city map as a park, and that persists. So I think that would be okay.
If the Harlem Greenway has been designated as parkland right now.
Yeah,
Yes?
I mean, if it's within the, yeah, I mean, if it's
Because
the
it's up
city's,
to 132nd shows parkland.
yes, it does.
That makes sense. All right, so that doesn't matter. I'm gonna see if there's any questions. Are there any questions for George or for Jessica? Seeing none, I want to thank you, George, as always. You are a member of this community board. I don't care what anybody says, and you are not going anywhere ever. Thank you, Jessica, for filling in the blanks and explaining when we needed additional detail. I thank you tremendously. With that, I'm going to go back to the agenda, and we are going now to section C, which is the continuing discussion regarding board meeting procedures. And with that, I want to pass that to Angel Muscane so he can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I had distributed some draft meeting scripts to be used for our full board meetings as well as our committee meetings. The idea being to provide, chairs and our membership with, a clear kind of path to how it is that we conduct our meetings, as well as including some kind of rules for the road of on specific questions that come up regularly and can be points of confusion from time to time. So addressing that in the script so that the meetings can run more smoothly. So I shared that with the current executive team a few weeks ago. I think it's like 8 or 9 pages or something. So I'm not going to read through all that, of course. I don't want to, and you don't want me to. I put it on here, or I asked for it to be put on here because when I wanted to hear the feedback, I did hear from Nelson Xavier, but did not hear anything specific from any of the other members. And the thing is in order for this to work, if we're going to do it, right, like with anything, we have to have buy-in. If we don't have buy-in, all the way across the board, then we're going to have, irregularities and differences, and and confusion will persist. So it's not a take it or leave it, but I did want to get the feedback at least to see if we even want to go down this path. And did you find things in there that you thought could be useful, or things that could be improved, or things that are unnecessary, or any feedback would be helpful. And and then frankly, at the end of it, want to know if it's something that you all think should be adopted, and if so, I would ask that you all vote to memorialize that, so that in the future, when you forget, or your successors are not as aware, I can always just point to no, it was adopted here. So yeah, I'm all ears.
Okay, so the first question I wanna open up the floor, and I'm gonna select Jessica first, then it'll be Xavier and Jason. So Jessica, would you start?
Thank you. And thank you so much for putting that together, because I found it very helpful. And, we used it at Parks. And I think the only feedback that I would have for it is that I think it started out strong for us. And then as we got later on into the presentation, the meeting, looking at some things there, it was hard for me to go back and forth. So I think with practice, it will become easier. But one of the things that would be helpful, and I spoke with Carly about, is aligning the presentations with the script so that you know, it's easier because it is quite a long script and there's a lot of pieces. So I don't want to have to search through it for the section that I'm on in the meeting. So as much as we can do on the front end to align it would be super helpful. But it was great and I enjoyed it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Nilsa, can I defer to Jason first and then I'll comment after him since we want to hear from our chairs who haven't opined on it.
Thank you. Yeah, I responded. I thought that this should be, I don't know if it's necessarily a formality, but I do think it's a good informative tool, especially for people that have challenges in conducting business and or executing any action. So I definitely use the script. I found some things helpful when it's common practice or common knowledge for board members. Like in the beginning, we don't have to adopt the agenda unless there's a comment. And I need not tell you, I definitely used practices that would make the meetings efficient. With that said, I saw what is already done in practice just be memorialized in a procedure. So I do think that it should be a part of our membership handbook, because I do find it useful and informative.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. The one thing I would say that would be helpful, because I think it is, we were trending in this direction, but I think putting it in a script format that's easier so people, and I think also too for our chairs or vice chairs of each committee to step in, because we've seen what that could look like when we were in-person meeting, having just like, oh, I haven't done this in like 4 or 5 months because the chair is always here. I think it makes it easier. The one thing I would love is that the rules, the guidance in order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. Jessica mentioned that like partway through the meeting, things started to kind of drift. And I think just if we had that on a slide where we can defer back, it's like, hey guys, the chair reins in and say, let's pull up the rule guy. I need you to observe this so we can keep things going. I know we're an hour and a half in and we're having a very healthy debate, but please, I need you to do this is just to refresh our memory. And then you circle back. I think that would be the only recommendation, because then as we get into if something gets heated or people are very impassioned, I think that will help jog their memory, say, oh yes, protocol. And then we're back on rails very quickly without a chair coming off as being too heavy-handed. And I think that just it's a simple like stutter step back into line. So, and then we're back to efficiency. That was my only thing. Thank you for the great work. I've read many scripts in my career, and this is one of the better ones. I had to have a go. All right, there you go. Thank you. But I got a smile there, so that's what happened. Thank you for the work, Angel. Seriously.
Yeah, no
well
problem.
Done. Well done.
Thank you. And any of the other chairs, right? We need everyone to be on the same page. And like, is it helpful? Did it clarify some things that I know in preparing it, like one of the points that I looked into, came out of a conversation that Xavier and I had after one of the land use meetings about like the issue of friendly amendments, which is a term that's been thrown around forever. And honestly, I never really paid too much attention to it. But, after we had a conversation, I did some digging and, found some information, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of what I found. And so I included that in there. And frankly, it's a useful thing where it's where the amendment is like a non-controversial amendment, right? Like, like turn this, make this a capital A instead. You don't want to do that for like substantial things, but for simple things to save yourself, having to go through another vote certainly is useful. And having that just there so that, we aren't, hey, do you know what a friendly amendment is? Because not everybody does, and it's hard to remember all this stuff or all the other points of this and points of that and blah, 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 which are useful when when necessary. The rest of the time, you're like, I don't remember what that is, or I can't find my book. Anyway, so anyone else?
Jason?
Yeah, I was just sharing I guess I was agreeing with you because I do, from my trainings that I've taken under the Borough President's office, since I've been a board member, I never forget the young lady's name, but I know she's a big shot. She works on the Parliamentary Procedure Board. You guys know the terms better than me. My emphasis of what I've taken from those trainings repeatedly, and I will never forget, is that a body and its leadership has the right to conduct business based off of cultural practice. So the emphasis that I took from that, and I remember I ran that part. I kept asking her, well, but what if people claim parliamentary procedure? Parliamentary procedure is then interpreted but through Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order is then short scripted, by our handbooks. And her attitude was that if it's a standard practice and a cultural practice and it's understood by the body and agreed upon, then there's not a challenge for interpretation at that point. And I think that though we get into the weeds, or for lack of a better word, let's be real, we're adults here, we get into the games of playing with words and terminologies, it's fairly understood what's the intent when a member's trying to change a question or concern in any vote. So I just always think of that whenever you draft policy or procedures or laws up for interpretation. As long as we are open and flexible to various translations, then we should definitely be able to coordinate effectively with our board. So I'm ready to make a motion, but
Not yet.
I'll wait.
Let's
I'll
finish
wait.
the discussion.
Yeah, we're not gonna start that. This is why we need scripts. With
So
that,
I
wanted
was just letting it be known. I'm just ready.
I
Now I'm
know.
gonna make
Okay.
it, but
I
just
wanted
letting
to say
it be
something to
known.
that. So thank you
Okay.
for saying that, because it is, like the intention is always to get on the same page, right? But when not everybody knows what page to get on, that's where the confusion comes in. So some people may be saying, we got to do it this way. Oh, we got to do it that way. Or I'm used to doing it this way. And that's all, it's all fair, like you bring in what you know or what you're used to. And that point that you made about, nobody is beholden to a specific set. It's what you establish as your practice and you agree to, or what you write down as your practice. I am of the mind, though, that we should write something down, not anything crazy exhaustive. Just something like in the spirit of the script, like just basic stuff, like even if it's just commemorating what we're accustomed to doing already, for the purpose of easing confusion for our current membership, but also for the purpose of when new people come in, they just plug into what's there, as opposed to like figuring it out, right? Like I've been through a lot of chairs, right? So it's pretty regular for folks to be like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It's not a judgment on them. It's just kind of part of the experience, right? So like if we were to set something, like write something out, I think that would be helpful too. And since you mentioned handbook, you had mentioned that in an email as well. That's kind of like the larger vision I'm going for, is creating a couple of these things, one step at a time, and then putting them all together in a book.
Thank you, Angel.
I'm sorry.
The next person who had her hand up is Marissa Mack.
Hi, thank you all. Angel, thank you so much for putting this together. I will be completely transparent in saying that I did not read through the entire document, but I did look at the script, and I think it's great in terms of making some sort of standard and making our meetings more efficient. So thank you so much for putting this together. I guess my comment, and I will, again, I will look at this weekend more in depth and read through specifically the bullet points. But I do think that the, I guess just the continuation of making the announcement after every speaker might be a little bit redundant. I feel like if we need to do it, or if we feel that there's like a lot of talking going on, but just in an effort to ensure like our meetings are not as long. And I will say this for for Echo Dev, because we have been having a lot of presentations recently, but not sure if I need to repeat that, line after every presentation in terms of making sure people are muted. But this is great in terms of just having some sort of outline and something to follow as a guideline for our meetings, so we have some sort of standard practice. So thank you for putting this together. I'll have more feedback for you next week, but thank you. Mhm.
Thank you, Marissa. Jose?
Hey, so I had a question at the roll call. So we're doing roll call at the end of the meeting as well, Angel?
So thank you for raising that. So like you're talking from the full book script, right? So yeah, that's something I'm proposing. And
I'm not against it, just in case.
Yeah. Thanks. I added that. I think I added a note as to why is so that we can confirm attendance.
Yeah, we implemented this when I was secretary many moons ago.
Yeah, we did it, and then we kind of fell back off. So
then afterwards, we just haven't done it. Is that also for the committees, or it's just for full board?
I was proposing it just for full board, but if you guys want to add it for committee, to do that as well.
There was one that said they were not present during the first roll call and the second roll call to be arrived late, left early. Wouldn't they just be absent?
I cannot recall the exact time that you have to be present to not be able to be marked absent. I think there's like fluffy language about a significant portion. So you could be 5 minutes late and leave 5 minutes early, but have been there for 4 hours for the full board meeting. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jose. I don't know why I remember like half an hour, but I'm not sure about that, so we'll have to check. Thank you, Jose, for your question. David Giordano is next with a question.
Angel, I want to first thank you because, as much as I go all over the place, I like to have like a guide to kind of work and then go all over the place with
and then go over the place.
Right. But I think it helps set a standard with moving and particularly for new members. Because, we had and Carly was really great in a few situations, but one where, we debate whether we write a letter or a resolution. And there's different work that goes into writing one versus the other and the time frame that you need.
Yeah.
And the resolution you have to go before the full board.
Yeah.
So I think this is good. And I think this is just a start, again, when people all want to present, and I said, let's develop a form, right? And that form has evolved over time. But it's helped set a standard now for all the committees. So I think, we should continue to grow this. I'll be willing to help. I like kind of stuff I like tools that help us do our job better. So thank you for taking that time. Too often people don't use the tools, but and that drives me crazy as well.
Well, that's Nelson's job then. Okay.
That's Nelson's job. No, but I think we should, continue to grow it as our own kind of guide and orientation manual, especially for new members. And I'll just say this and get off. I'm taking, and the reason I'm going to be late on Thursdays is I'm taking a group of kids and we're being trained by Iris House on HIV, and so that they become the trainers. And it's like, the last time I took a HIV training was maybe the 90s, right? How much has changed? Right. So sometimes even when we know Robert's rules or how they're applied in practice, we all need those refresher courses. So maybe it becomes a standard that, when we have that summer get together or whatever, it's an orientation, and then there's work first and then fun later. And maybe that's how we should work it, because I got a lot of new members on on the committee, and so it's an education process, and we don't see each other in a meeting where we'll stop at the end of a meeting and go to somebody and say, yada, yada, yada. Right. And it was interesting. I was at an event 2 weeks ago, and I met Art. He came to me, and I didn't know who he was. We all wear masks, right? But it was, again, we kind of developed something that we're missing now on the Zooms. But I think, again, you're on the right track. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. So I have a comment, but I'm going to wait till the end. I see Xavier has had his hand up for quite a while. Xavier? You still here,
Thank you.
Xavier?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
The original faux pas still muted. So a lot of the comments were very helpful. Thank you for bringing up our conversation, Angel. Really appreciated that. I spoke after that conversation with my mentor in parliamentary training, and they echoed a lot of those sentiments. And they said the best guide rails is that if it's going to be substantive, and at the committee level, friendly amendments in their experience and having observed this with different bodies was easier to handle at the committee level. But once it's passed through the committee to the larger body, if there are substantive, again, and I think that's up for this body to decide in our process, whether or not if we become stuck on a moment of it's 10 versus 40% of a particular position, then I think that's something that, we should have a later discussion about how we would handle that on the floor of the general body. But I think that the guidelines of falling within, yes, we're just going to change, this and this, simple Boolean, we all agree, yes, I accept it right there. But when a chair is before the full body and the representing the committee at large, I think that's where we tend to have misunderstanding. So not for this entire discussion, this meeting, because I know we have a packed agenda and we're already at 8 o'clock, but just something we should, Madam Chair, if we could take under consideration. So we can, as Angel put it, plug into with our new members, and it makes it a more streamlined approach. So this is a very good conversation. So thank you so much.
Thanks, David. So on that too, like I'm not proposing that this is our parliamentary procedure, right? Like there's like a simplified version that we can do that's included in this thing. Then we can still have write something up. I know you were tinkering around with something, and that's cool. But what was my butt? The hell was the second thing I was gonna say? It left. That was the second thing I was gonna follow up with. Yes. So there are a couple of pieces in the script that will save us time, but I just want to be clear that I'm not selling you on an idea that it's going to save us all the time, and it's not going to avoid us getting bogged down. That's just part of the process, and that's what it is. But I think that if we've been pushing our chairs kind of quietly, and I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but to get letters and resos drafted before full board, right? That saves steps, right? So, sometimes we do a carrot and sometimes we do a shove. But if we do, if we come, you guys have heard me say this before, if we come clean to full board, with everything's there, everything's in front, everything's ready to go, it just goes super smooth, right? ECHO has 2 letters this month. We have one ready to go. We'll have another one tomorrow. And with that, that'll be the last thing. And they just met the day before yesterday. We'll have everything for Tuesday, right? So when you guys get the agenda, you'll get everything, which is great, because then you have the opportunity to read it, right? And if you get a chance to read it, perfect. And then when we get to full board, there's less, what about this? What about this? What about this? There's less need for debate there, even though debate is your right? And then one thing that and then I'll stop for now. The one thing that I am happy for us to take on, I'm looking forward to us taking on, is instead of Jason coming and also calling on Jason to give the report for district needs, right? And Jason comes up and gives his report and then mentions that they passed the motion on whatever. And then, Nilsa asks for a motion to such and such. We skip that part. He gives his report, and then Jason presents the motion. And then we go into the debate and vote subsequently. We don't have to start off with that first and second business and all that jazz. It's that's what it is. That's the motion coming out of committee, right? But in order for us to make that work well, which I think we can, it kind of needs that partner at the beginning of coming in clean, right? So that, Jason's he's ready to go, but then folks are, feel prepared, and then they're just peppering, and Jason's what the hell happened? I thought I was good to go, Anyway, so I'll wrap up.
Okay, so now that everyone, or mostly everyone has spoken, I'll give you my comments. What I first want to say, excuse me, is that what the executive committee may not be aware of is that when I first became chair 3.5 or close to some odd years ago, that I was very fortunate because because Angel had already had a body of work that he had been working on to help improve this board, the chairs, the committees. For different reasons, it was not able to be rolled out. And so certain pieces were rolled out and certain pieces weren't. And we adopted what we could and put into practice, and things fell by the wayside. With COVID and the fact that we're doing business differently, Angel has gone back and has continued to reimagine how this board can work more efficiently and how in ways we can almost standardize so that there's no shell shockness. If I see how EchoDev runs their meeting and they have a script and I go to land use and landmarks and they're following the same thing, then this becomes our trademark, our branding on how we do our meetings. And it allows us to put more thought into different ways to supplement the body of work we're doing if we have some script like this. So I first wanted to thank Angel for the hard work that he's been doing, and Xavier for the comments that he's put in and we've commented. And I'm glad that those who have tried to put this in place has seen some benefit. I will say that in just looking at it, it may seem a lot or onerous in some places, depending on if the presentations are matched with something else. But I will tell you that the more you do it, it becomes second nature. The idea is that this becomes, let's say, memorialized in a manual or however we're going to do it, but that it becomes second nature. And I think as we confidently put it into practice, I think that you're going to see the benefits and people will see the benefits. And I will tell you that when I became chair initially, I was a new chair. Angel helped me with scripts and so that he could make sure that I focused on the importance. So I am a living testament to Angel's work. If you think I've done it well, then that's a good thing. If you think I haven't done it well, you're thinking I'm doing it well, and that's still a good thing. So, I want to thank everybody for their work. But Angel continues to innovate this board and gives us ideas. And my question is, in terms of memorializing this, right, as the chairs practice more the scripts and fine tunes and may find things that work well or what needs to shift around, what do you think is a reasonable timetable where the executive committee can say, okay, this is it. There may be deviations, but we would like to memorialize this and take a vote to adopt this as general practice within our meetings. Is it something that we want to, again, continue to discuss within the next meeting or two, and then try to do something maybe in June meeting? I just was curious to your thoughts and if there's any other thoughts on that.
My thoughts?
You.
Their
Yes,
thoughts.
let's start with you.
So I want to do everything yesterday, but
Okay.
so we got April, May, June.
Right.
My suggestion, my strong suggestion would be to implement it no later than June. Because waiting to September is always a mess. Everyone still has summer on the brain and it's hard to and then we're going to start up with budget priorities and all that. It's just busy. It's hard to and also try on anything.
Okay. So what I would suggest is that for chairs that have not tried the script in their meeting, that they do it in April, so that at the next executive meeting, every chair can opine on how they found the script and whether they have any suggestions on any sections, because then in May, we are going to look to finalize and maybe even vote on adopting it. If for whatever reason that doesn't happen in May, then June will be the date, which sort of tracks with what I was thinking. So if there are no comments or any questions on what I just brought up, then we are going to move on to new business.
So hold on, I got confused. So you want them to test drive it in April and then come back with any notes in May and possibly vote in May?
Right, so what they can do is do the test drive. Anybody who hasn't done it, and we should continue to do it in April. We should still put that as continuing business, continuing discussion on the scripts.
Okay.
Because committee chairs may find someplace that they'd like to add additional comments to, or find that for their committee, certain things may not work, or they have to do a shorter version for that committee. If there are no strong comments, so depending on that, then we can vote on it in May. And then we can continue, then we formally implement it. Well, we'll be doing it in May and formally implement it in June, as opposed to waiting to September.
Got it.
Because we have that hiatus. And in some instances, committees meet during the summertime. That will give the committee chairs more familiarity. If there are slides that need to be prepared based on the comments of the committee chairs, then those slides can be prepared. The committee chairs can then do a test run. And any other supplemental documents or work that they need, we can work on that with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let me see. I see no questions, good. I'm going to now move on to new business with street activity permits. We have as new business, the NISM Easter Extravaganza 2021. Okay, who will be giving us the background on that? Is that Judith or you, Angel?
So all of these came in after their meeting.
Okay.
So what we did is.
But I am here. I am here.
Yes, we know.
Okay.
Thank you, Judith. So what we asked, these came in after their meeting. So I asked Marlene to send these to executive because they're going to start up before the next meeting of that committee. So we wanted them to, at the very least, come in and get and present to one of our committees, and be able to, explain what their event is going to be. So the first one, NISM, we've seen several years. So we're accustomed to that one. It's a health fair. The other ones, and they can speak for themselves, of course, and they will. The other ones it's a package of events by under the city's new open culture program. And to be frank, like the city just announced this. So we're also getting our sea legs as to how the program works and how the process works insofar as community boards opining. But since their first events start right at the beginning of April, we didn't want to lose an opportunity for this to be presented publicly and presented to the board in case there are, any, concerns, and of course to spread the word. Both the NISM and the open culture events that will be discussed after it, both will be closing streets completely, right? So when we're closing streets completely, we do not want to ever vote on something or let something go on undiscussed that's going to result in a closure, right? Because folks will, of course, question, why can't I park my car or whatever. So we, I asked that they be put on the agenda tonight. So Paul Dawkins is on for NISM, and Naomi Goldberg that spoke earlier is on for the second one.
Okay, Paul,
Yeah,
welcome to our meeting.
thank you.
as you are aware, this is the executive committee of all the committee chairs of Community Board 11. So as you're discussing this, each community board committee is represented by the lead. And so if you can just tell us, we are well aware of all the events that you do throughout the years in our community, and we thank you for them. With that said, can you go into a little bit of this event so that for those that may not be familiar with your events, that they can get a sense of what the event entails, and then we can ask more specific questions as needed.
Okay, thank you. For those who don't know, NICEM is a nonprofit that has a number of direct community engagement activities and projects throughout the year. One of our main initiatives is to do a number of various community events to bring the communities, different communities out together for positive and safe environments, for recreational and educational values. So this particular event that I'm talking about here, the Easter event, will actually be our 9th annual Easter event in the East Harlem area. We've been doing this since 2013. So this year will be somewhat different than our past events because, obviously with the ongoing pandemic, we have to be conscious of safety procedures. So for the most part, we're limiting attendance for the event, and most of the activities are walkthroughs, giveaways, and we're only allowing a certain amount of space for the different activities we do have there. But we do want to have the event because we do want to have it. We had to cancel the event last year, and we want to give the community, we want to continue the tradition with the community. So, with all possible COVID protocols, everybody wearing a mask, everything socially distanced, mostly grab and go events, grab and go tabling activities, as well as limited capacity activities, in regards to like the Easter egg hunt and things of that nature. So, but we want to move forward with this event with all, COVID, COVID protocols in place.
Thank you so much, Paul. I have a quick question to start off. Any questions? This obviously, I have been very fortunate to go to a lot of your events in the past, and I see how well organized they are, and so I thank you for that. With that said, because this event would be different in time and in a community that has had COVID impacts, when you say you're doing things usually in the street, or you've done them in gardens and things like that, how will you ensure the limits that you were talking about? Like, what are the numbers? Because this is outside, right? And usually you have the ability to touch a lot of people through your advertisements, your social media. A lot of people generally come out. And so it's been my experience that street events under normal circumstances are hard to limit. So my question is, what are the thoughts in what are the plans in place to limit these activities? Are you going to just advertise to a certain number of not-for-profits? Are you going to have just a limited number of anything, like let's say grab and go lunches where you only have, let's say 50? So when you hit that number 50, that's shut down. I'm just curious to hear how you are looking to put limits into your events.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the plan. The giveaways, or the grab and go activities that we do have, are going to be very, very limited in number. We also very narrowly, the amount of promotion or engagement has been very narrow. We do have a way of tracking how many people sign up for our events, and we've limited that to a very minuscule number to what it usually is. But everything that we're doing as far as what will be in the street or in the park area will be limited to a certain amount, and then once that's done, the activity is over. So there's no reason for people to linger in a certain area. And as far as access to the garden, there'll only be a certain amount of people allowed in the garden at one time, for the duration of the project.
Okay, and just one more follow-up. In terms of in the past, you have been very good about having a lot of support at your events. In terms of even with the scale down that you're looking at, are you planning to scale down the amount of support you usually have, or are you looking to have the support in place that you usually would have for a large scale activity to ensure that the limits are followed?
If you're talking about volunteers,
Yes.
we are having a smaller amount of volunteers because we don't want a bigger group of people in any one space. But the plan that we have in place for those volunteers will allow them to be, allow us to be able to manage any flow of traffic that happens at the event, regardless of, even though we have a limited amount of volunteers, because it's not meant to be a large scale event at all.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. I'm gonna open it up for other questions. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Paul, for your presentation. I too have been to Paul's events in the past, and I have to say, not only are they flourishing to the community, they're motivating in service. So my question is more to our standards and procedures. One is what you brought up, Chair, and it's something that's always been a concern of mine whenever we approve street activities or closures, is the concern of COVID, the pandemic, and how it fits our community. I would say this, I don't know if it's, and forgive my ignorance, if it's already a part of our package when there's a request for street activity, if for lack of a better word, a health and safety procedural plan is provided by the entity that's entertaining the task. And then my second question to that, not necessarily to hold that to account to be answered at this moment, is if we do approve these events, and not just for the event that was brought up by Paul, have all of the documents and the standard requirements as set up by our license and permits committee, have they also been provided already?
Yes, I'm sorry, it's Judith. Their documents are.
Judith, thank you.
What?
You repeat yourself. We can hear you.
They do have their documents. Is that what Jason was asking?
Yes, thank you, Judith. So Jason, you heard that Judith stated that they have all their documents as outlined by Community Board 11 and the Licenses and Permits Committee.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll wait for questions and I'm ready to make a motion.
Let me see who else. Is there anyone else on this committee who has any questions regarding the event by NYSEM being held on April 3rd, a full street closure set up at 12 p.m. with a breakdown at 6:30 p.m. at East 114th Street between First and Pleasant Avenue? Are there any questions in terms of what he has asked, or anything else you might have a question on in terms of the day's activities? As you heard from our Vice Chair, Judith Fabraro of Licenses and Permits, this applicant has submitted all the documentation as outlined by our procedures. I see no questions, so I will entertain a motion from this committee regarding this application. Jason, you had your hand up?
Yes, ma'am. Motion to approve the full street closure as requested by this organization, NISOM. That's it.
Seconded by Xavier.
Seconded by Xavier Santiago. Okay, we will have a roll call vote for this. Angel, do you
Sure.
mind?
Not at all. Jose?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Marissa?
Yes.
Judith?
Yes,
David?
Yes.
Nilsa?
Yes.
Xavier?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Nye? She's still with us? She's gone. Motion passes.
Thank you. Nad was not with us, right? So I'm gonna.
Yep.
Motion carries.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, committee. Thank you, Paul, for coming in and explaining your event. And
Thank you all.
congratulations on having your street permit approved by this committee. This will be going to the full board on Tuesday,
Okay, thank you very much.
okay? For full board voting. You're welcome. With that, we will go to, is there the second one you were saying? Is it on the other slide?
Yes, so
Thank
so there are 3 applications for the same event. So you'll see it noted next to the name of the event, the different application numbers, and then you'll see the 3 different sets of dates. So it's Saturdays in April, May, and June. And representing the applicant, or the applicant is Naomi Goldberg Haas. She is on, let me unmute her. Naomi?
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and thank you so much, the whole executive committee. It's DVP, I'm representing DVP, it's called Dances for Variable Population. And we are thrilled to be participating in the Open Culture Program. It's a new program that was started by Council Member Jimmy Van Bramer in Queens. And it's a program that is encouraging socially isolated events where people are wearing masks to encourage culture and health. So this is exactly what Dance and Variable Population does. We promote strong creative movement among all adults of all ages. The closure is really just for an hour on those 3 Saturdays. I'll talk a little more about it. We are going into 5 different neighborhoods with this program that's called Movement Speaks. And we've selected certain areas: West Harlem, Central Harlem, the South Bronx, Long Island City, and East Harlem. And these are places where we've had relationships with older adults and have ongoing communication with senior centers in the areas that I'm talking about. We're bringing the program Movement Speaks, which is a program that we give throughout the year inside, but we haven't been able to give the program inside. So this opportunity to be outside is really excellent and thrilling to us. It encourages more mobility and more happiness from the experience of moving. We encourage people to move from where they're at, and we focus on creative movement. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you. I just need a little clarity before I see Judith has their hands.
I can't hear you.
Forgive. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I muted? Okay. So just because I'm just reading this slide, and so I just want a little clarity. There's 3 applications according to stated Angel. There's 3 different dates: April 3rd, May 1st, and June 5th. Is it that, for instance, April 3rd, set up at 10 a.m., breakdown April 24th, 2021. Is it that
Yeah.
each application covers
Yes.
4 Saturdays?
Yes, but
Okay.
but the
so
application is
we're
just
talking-
the application is limited to that street. So the idea is that we have to make sure that that we use.
I'm sorry, I lost you. I don't know if I'm the only one that lost you.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you hear
I'm
me
having
now?
difficulty hearing. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want the clarity. So in terms of these applications, let's say the first application is for the first date in April.
Yes.
Then it's gonna be subsequent Saturdays after that. The breakdown will be on April 24th, 2021. That day, if there's anything that was on the street, that's going to be down then. Is that correct? Am I understanding how these applications are?
It's actually, we talked to the police precinct officers, the community affairs officer, and he suggested we use there's a little park. Can Alan Sackhoff be unmuted, my partner?
Sure, just a second, yeah.
She'll tell you about that, because
Yeah, I just want to understand how this event works.
Alan will
Three
talk.
applications. Yeah, if there's 3 applications, if it's an application for each month, but for the 4, each application covers the 4 Saturdays within the month. It's not just one day. That's all I have to clarity on.
I think it's every Saturday.
It's
Every Saturday.
Yeah, every Saturday, April 3rd through June 12th.
But actually, community
Am I
affairs.
wrong about that?
Alan couldn't talk. We couldn't talk.
Okay.
Yes, sure. Yeah, we'll be holding class, a 1-hour class from at 11 o'clock on Saturdays, starting April 3rd,
Right.
April through the month of May, through the month of June.
But we can only apply for three applications for 3 permits that month. So it will be applying again. But the class will actually happen in the little park.
Right. We're very fortunate that we met, I believe it's Miguel Murphy, who is the community officer and detective, Miguel Murphy, yeah. And because we noticed that there was a very pretty park, so that we could have, it's safer for our dancers, who are mostly seniors, and sectioned off from the street. So in that way, you don't have to close the street, and you don't have to, we don't have to put barricades up, and our dancers will be protected.
Oh God.
And he was excited about the idea and thought that it made a great deal of sense.
Okay. Thank you so much. Judith, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a number of questions, but I know that this is an initiative by the mayor about these cultural
That's
street
right,
closures.
yes.
But
Yes.
now I was just told that you don't have to close the street. You're going to be doing it in the park. Is
That's
that
what
correct?
that's what the police officer wants us to do. He suggested it. So it
Oh,
doesn't affect the street.
Okay, because my concern was closing the street. And so all my questions had to do with closing the street. And do the people that live there and any of the businesses or anything, were they advised of this if the street was going to be closed? And also, because I know that your company is basically on the west side, was this done by the mayor that it was going to be held now on the east side on 103rd Street? And
We have regular programs all over the city. We have programs in different areas. We have
Right.
programs at
Who-
the Covilla
who-
Senior Center. So that's what we're.
who advises these particular areas? Is it
Where we have relationships with older adults, with senior centers.
Okay, so the mayor's office,
We work with Department of the
basically-
Aging. We work with the mayor's office. We work with everyone.
you're working with the mayor's office as to what
Yes.
locations that they're
Yes,
going
yes,
to be?
yes, yes.
Okay, that was one, and I know, I heard because it is a cultural
Yes.
situation, that the license and permit really doesn't weigh in on it, but we are supposed to be notified of these.
We want your blessing. We want your
Right.
blessing, Sky. We want you to come to classes.
I understand what you're saying, but I also, I am concerned about if there is any liability, if there's an emergency, even if it's in the park, is the city picking all that up? And someone had asked me, which was a kind of a strange question, is there any monetary money for this? Are people paying to do this or what?
It's the income is coming directly from our company. We're a nonprofit and we raise money to do classes.
Yes, I know you're not a nonprofit, but does East Harlem get anything from this monetary situation?
Classes. You get the experience of doing these events.
Part of coming to the class. The students don't pay.
No.
There's no charge.
Okay, and my other concern is now that you don't have to close the street, so a lot of my questions were, basically not that important. My concern was closing the street, and how do we advise the residents that live on that block, et cetera, so that they could know that these streets every Saturday from April 3rd for the next 3 months will be closed. So is this the only one that's going to be in the park, or the others coming up in May and June, are they going to be closing the streets? And our residents who live there should definitely be informed, because personally, I was not aware of all these cultural street closures. And another question to our community board 11, do we have an East Harlem cultural organization? Because I know this one is coming from the west side.
Well, off the top of my head, I'm sure that we have different cultural organizations. If we need more specific information, we can like do offline and to find out and then see about those events. So I do hear what you're saying. So we can always talk about that like offline, because
Okay.
this way we keep section moving. So if you have another specific question for this Judith, then let's ask it. They can answer in relation to their event. And if not, then I'm going to move to Jason, who also has his hand up.
Just one more question, which I didn't get answered. Is this the only one that's going to be in the park, so we don't have to close the street? But what about the ones going forward? Are they going to have to close the street?
No, they will, Judith, they'll all be, this spring, early summer program will be entirely in the park. So April,
So no
June.
streets have to be closed.
No
That was-
streets, no street closure. And I hope you'll come to class.
Perfect. Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Nilsa,
What?
Yes.
Nilsa, may I ask a question? And I hope I'm not being too forward, but do you have ways of helping us to promote this so that your neighborhoods know about this class? Because they're wonderful and our dancers love it.
Well, once we talk about this application, whether we will always promote any events in our community if we are provided with flyers and information that we can put either on our website or more directly in our newsletter.
We would love that.
That goes
We would love
out, that goes out to the community residents. Specific
Wonderful.
targeted advertising should be coming directly from your organization in terms of flyering and things like that, especially in the immediate area where you are looking to do these classes, or through the senior centers. But we will be more than happy to give information to our sister agencies, those that are in our newsletter. I personally run a multi-service center. I will be more than happy if you give me a flyer. In addition, I'm part of a larger professional network. I will be more than happy to, to send that information to our organization that also has senior centers within the.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for the information, because me and I spoke to a couple of people on my committee. We were unaware of this cultural block closure. So now that it's not a block closure, we feel a little bit better about this. Thank you.
Jason?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just trying to get back on topic. So they don't need a street closure. It sounds like they're looking for a letter of support.
Thank you.
That's what it sounds like. Then I don't, if there's no urgency, I don't see why I can't go back to committee.
Well, their first event is April 3rd. So that's why they have been brought to us. There is no full street close, so I'm going to ask Angel Muscane a quick question. I'm glad that Judith has opined. Angel, in terms of this applicant coming in front of us and familiarizing us with what they will be doing in our community, that we can help get the word out. Potential letter of support, because it's no longer full street closure. Other than a letter of support, how do you have to weigh in any other way in terms of this applicant?
So we don't do letters of support for street activity permits.
Okay.
Right. So like I expressed at the beginning before we start talking about these, the open culture program is brand new, literally weeks. So this is the first ones that we're seeing. And I'll be frank, I'm not even exactly sure, because I just haven't done it yet, if it's within the SAPO system, but we did get it through SAPO. So I don't know if it's a type of event, because they have different types of events. Let me be clear. Some of them that we are required to opine on, others that we're not. I'm not sure if this is one of those. So either you all can vote on it tonight in favor of it, and we can go into the system and communicate that, or you cannot. But we don't do letters for these. There's a website that we go to, and that's where we go and we check off a box. There isn't like a place to upload a letter.
Okay, the reason I asked is because it went from a street closure, which, to me is more committee kind of thing, to a park. And so that's the only reason, and Jason brought up the letter of support, so I thought I'd ask. So
that's a good question. Yeah.
Right, so in light of the fact, then we should then, based on what we heard, this committee can decide whether they're gonna vote to support this new event in our community, or not take a position or not vote. So with that said, I'm gonna then now, based on what Angel stated, I'm gonna again open it up for questions from the committee who will be voting on these applications. Based on what this committee has heard, are there any questions, as Angel has again mentioned, this new event, an initiative? Are there any questions we need answered before we put this in front of the committee? Marissa?
Yes, hi. I'm sorry, I'm just still a little confused. Is this something that we need to vote on if it's going to be in the park and it's not going to shut down a street? I mean, is this more of just a presentation? Or do we need to vote on this? Because if we don't need to vote, I'm voting that we don't vote and just support.
Nelson, can I
I'm still-
can I say
Yes,
something?
Angel, can you explain it again?
No. Well, like, it's not even explaining. It's
Okay.
like, this was presented to us as something we needed to vote on because they were seeking a closure of the street. During this conversation, they explained that they're not going to be closing the street. So that's a question to the applicant. Are they going to pursue this application to close the street, or are they not?
Not. The plan is not to close it. The plan is not to do close the street. Well, to run the program in the park and 103rd
To
Street.
run the, okay, so then a permit is not required.
No.
Correct.
No.
So for a matter of record, could we just disapprove it then? That's a question for you, Angel.
Respectfully, I think that's more of a question for you guys. Yeah, like kind of like what you, like if you
So
want to go up or down. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
my
I
question
got
is
a position.
this. So my question is this. This was a full street closure. You're now presenting that it is not a full
Yeah.
street closure. So in reality, we have reality that this is more of an informational session where you are
Yes.
telling us
Yes, that's right.
about your activity. In light of that, I'm not sure that there's any need to take a position, but we'll put that in front of the committee and get some more thoughts. The idea was that there was applications for closure that we needed. That is now changed, or we don't have something in front of us that states it's changed. That is coming out of the applicant's mouth, that they are not pursuing it. So I am of the general knowledge, we really have nothing high on, other than an information session where the applicant has asked us if we can help get the word out on
Yes.
their classes.
That's
May,
right.
may I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Who's that, Judith?
Yes,
Yes, Judith, I'm
did-
sorry.
because the documents that we have, I saw them today, Marlene sent them to me. Because of the documents that we have, the documents say street closure. Do those documents have to be redone? I'm just curious. It's just a question.
We went to the police precinct to talk to them, and they suggested to do the class in the park. They did not closing the street. It's new information to us. They
No,
suggest,
no, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying because our documents that were sent to us state street closure. So do they have to be redone to say that it's now not a street closure? That's all. It might be a stupid question, but I was just curious.
Judith, I don't really know. I don't really know my answer. We're going to do these we intend to do the programs in different areas, and some places have street closures. Some of the places the programs would be done in parks.
Okay,
Pardon me?
Hi, I think because this is a new program, and I think we could be spinning the wheels all night on this.
yes.
I don't think it's necessarily we have to motion to lay on the table. We know what they're going to do. It's coming through. I think we just say we're being supportive, but and literally just we're supporting it, even though they're not doing a street closure, and supportive of the event. So long as they're not doing a street closure, and that's fine. I don't think that's going to gum up the wheels with SAPO, and because this is a new program. Saying, again, because it is new, we don't want this to circle back, because then this will require this committee to act on behalf of the board and call an executive committee meeting before their first setup on April 3rd. It is now the 18th. And I think if we are satisfied with everything they have presented, provided that they're not going to close the street, otherwise it will require multiple meetings prior to that. And I don't think we need to, in my humble opinion, spend as much time as we are on this. given the situation, it's singular circumstances.
Thank you, Zaire. I agree.
Thank you so much.
All right, so
Wait,
that's my opinion. But I
please,
leave it to
wait.
the chair.
Wait, yes, please. I ask that as we deliberate, unless we actually ask, just because we're trying to think this through, that we keep our comments to a minimum. My question is, Xavier, you just stated some active directions, and I bring it back to you. You are stating that this committee consider what, a motion to support or a motion to approve this application as long as it's not a full street closure? Is that what you're saying? Because the application says full street closure. So if we're gonna vote on the application as we got it, right? If this committee is gonna deliberate on an application it actually has in front of them, then unless I am mistaken, then that's what we're voting on. We're voting on an application that initially indicated a full street closure. If
Correct.
the applicant has changed their mind, right, then I'm not sure that there's a reason for us to opine. Or we don't support the application as received. So I just want clarity, and just so I'm understanding what you're saying.
Because I really don't think we need to spend as much time as we are on this.
I agree.
And I think we just, because I haven't seen the other two, I don't have it up on my machine because I'm paying attention to the Zoom. If it is not essential for us to be voting on this, then we can either motion to lay on the table indefinitely and move along, and then we can just say, and we can issue just a support, and that's it. If we're supportive of this event, that I don't think,
Right, but Angel clearly stated that we don't give letters of support
then
for this application. If we want to make a general statement, if we're gonna table this because the application is not, there's a change in the application, then I say that then we table the application based on what the applicant has stated now. And then if we are supportive of the event, then that will show with us putting it in our newsletter and getting the word out. But am I wrong with this suggestion?
Okay, so then, Madam Chair, I rescind my initial thought, and I will just say that we motion to lay on the table indefinitely, meaning that we're not going to consider any more debate, and it's moot, and we can move along the agenda. And then we can just move to the next item, because if they don't need that, and this is not necessary for the application, then it shouldn't even be on our agenda now, is my understanding is correct. So we can move the agenda along.
But I kind of agree with Nilsa, because the documents say full street closure. So if we approve it, we're approving it under a full street closure. All I'm asking, will it be too difficult for them to just change that to a non-full street closure? That's all I'm asking. I don't think that's a difficult thing to do.
I honestly don't know what the process is to change the permit.
Okay.
Because the
But
permit
not
is
knowing
I'm
shouldn't
gonna
mean
do
it
is
shouldn't be
this.
done.
So what I'm gonna do is this, based on the information that we have, but based on the information the applicant is giving us, I am going to lay this on the table. I don't think that we don't issue letters of support, and we actually voting on an application. So that's going to deny an application that the applicant has already told us is not a full street closure. That makes no sense to me. So I'm going to table this until such time that we have more clarity. And so this way we can move forward. If the applicant decides that they can get us more clarity and let us know something, then this is something that potentially we would entertain as new business in the full board if the vote is absolutely necessary. but the application does not match what we're being told. As Angel said, this is brand new. We're not quite sure where it is in the SAPO process. And so I think that I'm unwilling to have us vote on something that we don't seem to be clear on. So with that, I will entertain, I am going to motion myself. I'm going to put this, I'm going to lay this on the table. I'm not going to move this forward until we get more clarity. If the community board needs to weigh in, then this is something I'll entertain at full board.
Seconded.
Okay, I'll accept the vote for acclamation on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So to be clear, we are not taking a position on this. If something should change, that we are told that we need to take a position on this application. If this application should come back as a full street closure, then we will vote on an application for full street closure, notwithstanding whatever the applicant has stated. If the applicant comes back with an amended application that states that it's in the park, and if SAPO insists that we need to weigh in as the community, then we will revisit it then. With that, we're going to move on to the next piece of business, if there is. Okay, with that, we are on to old business. Is there anything that anyone wants to discuss in terms of the section of old business?
Nope.
Okay, I still see 3 hands. I see Judith, Jason, and Xavier. Is it that you have your hands raised for old business?
Apologies.
That's
No,
okay. Jason
I
took his hand off.
canceled.
Judith?
No, I canceled.
Okay, so
I
not you
tried to
either.
cancel mine
Okay.
because I already spoke.
All
Yeah.
right, sweetie. That's okay. Angel, is there anything you would like to add during this section, or can I move it along?
No, by all means, move it along. The next round.
Listen, sir. Okay, I just lost my agenda. Can you move the slide to the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And with that, if there is no other, anything else to discuss, I am going to adjourn the meeting.
Madam Chair,
eight.
what happened before you adjourn? What happened to that item that was sent out? Some
Naomi,
resolution.
hang on one second.
I'm sorry,
What-
there's other people
What
talking.
item? No, we are doing the committee work public, please. You can, well, now we've moved our meeting along. I asked you to mute your microphones so that we can hear each other. Thank you so much. Jason, I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said?
Are we gonna discuss Health and Human Services resolution that came out second to the agenda when the agenda was
Okay, wait
updated?
a minute. I must have printed it. Oh, was that under new business? I'm sorry.
It was an email that was sent out.
No, it was going to be part of the report from the Health Committee, from the Human Services Committee.
Okay. Is human says on?
No. All right, then we'll
No,
wait for
no,
full board.
no, Madam Chair. I'm here. I sit on the committee. Nye had to pop off.
Okay, so what I'm gonna have Xavier give a brief description of what was sent out. This will be obviously something that I'm not sure we're taking up tonight or we're taking up at the full board. Xavier, can you give us some detail?
Yes, so this is the first step of our assessment of what's happening in the community. And we thought this was the simplest way to approach it, is that to give us a pause by writing a resolution where we stipulate we need time to see what's going on throughout all of our community partners. And we have many community partners who participate and contribute volumes to helping heal. And there are others that have not engaged. And so what this is an opportunity for us to take a pause and say no new until we've been able to assess everything. So we're not having to walk, chew gum, juggle, and not drop the books we're balancing on our head. And again, it's a brief moratorium so it can give us the opportunity to engage with providers who we have found some difficulty and reticence with engaging with us since last year, and to say, okay, we need to pump the brakes. We now have Oasis saying, listen, we want to help. We want to be proactive. We do have some minor issues with them understanding our point of view, but they're here and they're having a dialogue, which a year ago they were refusing a dialogue. And a lot of our electeds too are engaged. So this resolution is what can only be called at this point in time, the lowest hanging fruit of saying, give us the opportunity to assess everything. Please don't try to bombard us with new clinics or whatnot, while we have all of these others we're trying to engage and find out what they're actually delivering to this community and how are they being good community partners. That's all this really summarizes in. Our Human Services Chair, Nia Whitaker, was not able to stay for the full period of the meeting, and that's where this is. It was sent out. If there are comments, and I appreciate you, Jason, for raising. Thank you. If you want to provide some tomorrow to review it, we do have the 72 hours, and I appreciate your partnership in it too, because you and I have had many conversations, and I like.
Yeah, we know I'm not for it, so that's why I brought it up.
All right.
So I ask everyone, I printed out some of the materials, and my apologies, I don't seem to have that in front of me. I must have left it on my desk. So I ask everyone who has received the moratorium to read it, to give us your thoughts on it so that we can further discuss and shift and craft as needed with the Human Services Committee and Committee Chair. There is a great concern in this community that this community has an oversaturation of certain kinds of programs to the detriment of other programs that could be offered in the community, or that the community is only seen in such a way that only certain programs seem attractive. There is enough community engagement in different aspects to continue bringing home to us that this is something that we should at least talk about and consider. And so that's what the Human Services Committee has been tasked to do. And that is what they have been doing. And they have been tasked with engaging with providers. I have told them that myself, and I have been part of the meetings as well. So I ask each committee chair to read, to understand and look at the Human Services minutes from, if not just from this meeting, from prior meetings, so that there's a review of history, so that we make informed decisions when the final product is brought up for discussion. Is there any?
I just think, if I may, my comment is that, and this is just something that I could work on with Nahe and the committee outside. It's too generic, and if you know, this is coming from somebody who is a certified alcohol substance abuse counselor. There are different modalities, and though there are mass impacts in our district, and I'm very familiar with them, one of the organizations I operate with is on 125th Street between Park and Lexington. So we're very, very well aware of the challenges in the district. I just always, when I see stop, disruption, mitigate, limit, eliminate, my automatic question in telling people to stop performing services or adding, because if you read the resolution, there's real specific acts. I love Xavier's explanation, but you know, I interpret this a little bit differently. A moratorium on the sitting of any, I'm not gonna beat it up. I'll put my things in writing to you guys. I just want always the thought of, it's like with advocacy. If we're gonna say that we're gonna do something, then what is gonna be done to continue to provide the service? Our concern is, and let me help to be specific, is to the medical modality of drug treatment in our community. which is giving drugs for drugs, supplementing drugs for drugs. There are other programs that are very helpful, such as the behavioral modality, that doesn't give that same type of feeling or cultural or quality of life concerns that we're seeing under Grand Central. So it's both professional and personal for me. That's why I out the gate was the one who wanted to bring it up. And more importantly, to continue to have the conversation, because I do remember us bringing this up in youth and education many years ago before you were chair, and we didn't know if there was an existing moratorium in the district. So here we are 5 years later, asking about the moratorium, and I just still have questions on the process and the interest in making sure that, you know, when we talk about these people that are challenged, that we're thinking about it collectively, because in our statement of district needs, we asked for additional resources. Last month, we voted for another provider to come in our district. So I just found it ironic that the next month, this is automatically being presented. And,
Wait,
there wasn't no discussion. That was really why.
No,
I was
let
bringing it up.
me a little history here, Jason. The humans, which you may not be aware of, the Human Services Committee was being questioned in terms of moratorium. We have in the past, Community Board 11 discussed a moratorium in the 90s, I believe, and Candy Viva Vasquez can speak more about that it was never voted on, but it has been discussed. The concern is that there's a whole bunch of providers who are not open with talking to the community board. Services keep being brought up. Certain kinds of same services are being brought up. They're not all working with our community residents. Like anything, things are not tailored to specific communities. They're open to the citywide population at large. The numbers that have been drawn up, which this community board is tasked with getting its own information, there's an over-reliance on outside sources, and we need to do our own work. And that's why the Human Services Committee was tasked to talk with the providers that were existing here. The idea was based on where the discussions and the outside groups that were trying to give their opinion on what they thought should be done, that the committee said, an idea is to pause right now until we can assess what are the programs that are actually working, who is actually in the community, what is it that we may actually need, are they being effective, are they actually working with community residents. That was the idea of a pause. Right now, no new programs to come in until there's an assessment. There will always be a point in time where you have to reassess. The program that, if I'm correct, the program that you were talking about, CCHP, if that's the program that I'm remembering, was an existing provider that has been in this community for decades and was displaced because Metropolitan Hospital was taking back their space and they needed to find another space. So they are not a new provider to this community. They are not providing new services to this community. They're looking to continue to give primary care and existing services, which do include some sort of drug treatment within the bounds of Community Board 11. If that's the program you're talking about, that is an existing program that has been here for decades. I hear what you're saying. And so then it's the work of that committee to show through the research that it's doing, the kind of providers we have, those that are doing the modalities that you are talking about, or if they're not doing that. And then that speaks to what we have to advocate for. There was a push to have this community board do a complete moratorium on everything. This community board has to be independent from, this community board has to hear what the community say, but has to come up with the work and come up with decisions. And what was given tonight, it may be general, because if you make things too specific, a lot of times you can't walk things back. When you do things general, then you can fine tune it. But if you try to figure out every single thing that you want to address, it may make it difficult. That's why the moratorium discussion, what was drafted, may be general. I understand you want these specificities, so I'll look forward to hearing your comments, and I'm sure the Human Services Committee. And that's why I'm saying, if there are comments today based on this, that then the Human Services Committee can take back, that will help inform the moratorium. But the fact of the matter is, this community board has been under pressure for a long time to take a position because of fair share. And other community boards do have moratoriums on the same kind of thing, more specific. We are trying to be general because we don't want to exclude services that we may need, but we want to have the chance to review so that this community board, when it weighs in on providers that come in, can make the best informed decision. What we need to realize also is that if Oasis wants to cite another program here, they'll take into account what we have said. But if the need precludes what the community board is saying, I have no kind of doubt that they will cite something here. But this was a way to try to hear what the community was saying and trying to let Oasis understand that we are just because people have property here, can rent here, doesn't mean that every single treatment program in East Harlem that decided here needs to be here. Because I will tell you, there are a lot of people in Harlem who don't need drug treatment programs. There are a lot of people who do need drug treatment programs. There are people who say they need more after school programs. They need providers to come in with daycare. So this was an attempt of Human Services to try to come up with something that they can work on to then fine tune as needed, depending on the community needs. So I just wanted to give you a sense of the history. I suggest that everybody goes back to the Human Services Committee minutes, not just from this past meeting or the meeting left, but within the last couple of months, so you can get a better sense of how the conversation initially started and where it ended up today. And you will see that there's a vast difference from the position that the committee first took, that was extremely specific. There was a draft resolution for that, to one that is more open. So I look forward to hearing the comments, and I'm sure, so please share them. They are important because your thoughts help us see how we can address any deficiencies that it may be causing. So, you know, thank you, Jason, for the comments. I just wanted to give you a little history of how this is this iteration.
Madam Chair, David has his hand up, and I just
David?
wanted to add a little bit as well.
So first, I think I agree more with Jason at this moment. I didn't attend the last human service. I attended the one prior to. And the one prior to really didn't do too much work on this. So I'm wondering if we're just rushing to take a position, again, without doing a lot of the proper work. And I don't want to be critical of any committee or anybody in terms of the work that they're doing. But, you know, when we spoke about this at full board, you know, once you raise the issues of substance abuse, people confuse the issues that we're talking about with these programs in the daytime with the substance abuse that occurs in the community at night. And I think, you know, again, when we look at programs and where they are and where they are, I mean, do we criticize Mount Sinai for serving more people outside of East Harlem than we do for them? So I'm very cautious of how we treat programs that are here. And again, I'm biased. I have an Oasis program that services youth. And yes, it's a preventive program. But, you know, have we really done the due diligence? you know, from that resolution that came out a few weeks ago, and I'm sorry I didn't read the information prior to this meeting on what they produced. But isn't it quick to make that judgment to just, I mean, I don't think we've separated a lot of the issues yet. And again, I did not attend one meeting, so all this occurred in one meeting?
I'm not sure that everything occurred in one meeting. I think the discussion was that based on original draft, very specific and exhausting and had a lot of language that was excluding. That if the committee wanted to take a position, and if David can speak more to that, that it might be advisable that the community feels that this community board is actually listening to them after so many years of coming to meetings and having the same concerns and not feeling that we've addressed them. And in finding that they reached out to certain providers and they got no callbacks, and the fact that programs keep being expanded and cited within the confines of Community Board 11, that it would be good for this community board to take some type of position to say, basically, while we are aware that these programs are needed, what are the programs that are being cited? Do they fall within the parameters of what Community Board 11 is looking for? So again, I say, and this is something that I've said in the past, and not just to Human Services, each committee needs to do their work. When I ask questions, you know, that's fine that we get outside external reporting and things like that. But what work has the committee, any committee, actually done to support some of the positions that they do, and what supports resolutions that they take? So I understand what you're saying. And so I tasked this community board that, right, as they review these items, what is the kind of work that you would like to see happen? What is the timetable that you would like? And what would make it possible for this community board to take a position in anticipation of each individual program or each individual need that this community needs? And I think if this community board takes that position, of course, each provider has the right to circulate the services citywide. We do that with some youth employment. We do that with a lot of different things. The concern of people who come to the community board and outside groups petition this community board is the fact of the matter. They see a percentage of programs with the confines of CB11 that don't seem to match the amount of people that need the services within CB11. And so the concern is, if we are servicing and have placement for the people who have expressed needs within the community, right? And we have enough seats based on the programming that's already available within CB11, then what is the justification to potentially open up or expand more of the same kind of service? Why not a different service like Jason mentioned? So that speaks to work that has to be done by the community. What are the services that are needed? That goes to questionnaires and engagement. That's why it's always needed that work is done to answer those questions. What services are in here that may be tied in?
Nelson,
right?
East Harlem still services more people in those programs that are East Harlem people than the rest of the city. And they still do.
That's right. And so no one is right. And so no one's saying to close down the existing programs. No one is saying that. The idea is, this is my understanding, right? The idea is, if we are servicing East Harlem people and there are placements for these programs for East Harlem people, and if always come to us because they want to cite one more program on 125th in building there in a problematic area, what is the reason for that? Like, what is the due diligence that this community board is doing to ensure that programs that are actually coming here are actually needed? We don't get told programs that are potentially coming. We get informed when applications have already been approved by Oasis, and they're told to come to us at their box check that they came in front of the community board. And that's been a real concern for this community in general. So we're not speaking, nobody is speaking, and I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking about closing down existing programs. I'm not saying new programs can't come in. I'm saying that as a community board, a community resident that's lived here for 60 years, right? If another program is going to open up, then there's real value in knowing that one, it's needed. Two, the existing people that are going to be doing into that program can't be going to existing programs within our community. And three, that they're actually offering a real lifeline, whether it's behavioral modification or something else, that they're bringing something to this community that will help enrich those individuals that need service. If they just come in and just more methods without doing anything else, and we already have, let's say, 50 of those programs, and we're getting 50 more because Oasis has added more, then the question is, right, by the community who's voiced it, why do we need more of the same program? And so there's work to be done in assessing.
Nelsa,
right?
I don't know if it's
like
just
that,
me, but I can't really hear you well.
okay,
It's
do you
cutting
hear me
off a
better
lot.
now? Okay, so basically what I'm going to say is, I'm gonna
Yeah,
move
now
it
it's
over
better.
to, right, I'm gonna move it over to anybody else. But I think that this board needs to do the work, just like it has to do the work for the statement of district needs. I think each committee needs to assess that within their body of professionalism and expertise, that whatever they put out is work that they've actually done. And the fact of the matter is, this community has had for a long time concerns with the fact that programs seem to come into our community that we're not even aware of, like private doctors come in and they start dispensing methadone from private clinics, that and they don't have to come in front of the community board. And so I think this was obviously Human Services' second attempt to try to put something to address community concerns while allowing the community board to continue its due diligence and to try to reason what other services are needed so it can then give its recommendations to Oasis. Not looking to stop current programs that are operating here, but to say, wait a minute, let's assess. Let's try to reach out, which they have been. Let's try to get more information. Let's see what this community actually needs. And then let's move forward and revisit. Xavier, would you like to speak to this?
I would, and I thank you for referencing institutional knowledge. And you're right, since the 90s, the late aughts, when I was on the board, this is something we tried to take on. I think it is important in the committee, and I wish the chair was here. Unfortunately, as she expressed, she had a dental issue with a wisdom tooth. So now I will hopefully be able to speak more on it. I welcome everyone who is speaking passionately on these issues to our Human Services Committee. It was on our agenda and it's important to engage. I try to reach out as much as possible, but please show up, be involved. This was discussed in February. It was discussed this month. This was, the committee did the work. We were intentional. The committee was intentional in making sure that preventative programs that are provided by Oasis, such as what David mentioned, and thank you for mentioning that, that those were excluded from this. This is expressly about drug intervention, substance abuse problems coming in, because the initial analysis was representative of a lack of fair share. And that was all it is. We have enough services. We just needed a pause to assess. That's all we were asking, was a simple pause. And we've had a lot of community members, not just from whatever the East Harlem neighborhood, whatever group it is that's come in before. We've had other people from our NYCHA developments and from others, and we've gone into the field. So we've taken on board the committees and this body, their recommendations. And we've been out there and we express and want others to come with us. and to be part of that process. So this is really nothing more than a pause. That's what the committee, and I think it passed unanimously, because they did take it very seriously, everyone's apprehension about the previous version that had exited the committee and was not taken under consideration. So this is just the first of a multi-step process. That's all this is. This is stage one. It is the simple, most lowest hanging fruit. Like, please pause. We want to do assessment and engage everyone. We want to have every provider come and actually engage with us. We want Oasis to provide their data points for comparative analysis and to find out, okay, who are you serving? Which parts of the neighborhood? But again, we're not anti-preventative programs, as we have approved CCHP. That's been here being a good community partner, and they want to continue being a good community partner. So there's no necessarily, how do you say, cognitive dissonance. That's not there. This is about us being holistic in our approach, and we need all of us to be together in this process. So I understand people's positions, but again, this is what came out of committee. There were certain things that I advocated to be removed, but it was done through a democratic process, and this is what's landed. I wish Nye was here. She's not. And so again, I'm just soup to nuts from the 90s on. We asked for treatment centers. We asked for help from the drug epidemics that have plagued especially minority communities. What we did not foresee is the neglect that would happen into the Gen X and millennial, and the impact that it's had on our community long term. We did not foresee this. We asked for help, and the way it was doled out had a unintended detrimental impact. And so we're trying to manage the best we can. And this is giving us, all it is an opportunity for us to assess. So otherwise, if we do nothing, they could still come in and approve. And they could still, after this resolution, they could state, hey, well, we still want to approve, but Oasis now, we have their ear. Whereas previously we did not have their ear a year ago. So we're more empowered now than we have been to do this work. That's all this is. Again, it's giving us the opportunity to assess. So, but again, I'll let the chair of the committee speak. I'm just merely voicing it and trying to make sure we have a very holistic process. So thank you, Madam Chair. And again, we're all on the same team on this, which is a human-centric approach. And I hope you'll be partners in this.
Thank you, Jason.
I don't have any, I said what I love everything that was stated. But again, I recommend you read the resolution. A lot of what was stated is not what's taken into account when you read the resolution, terminology. But like I said, I'll chop it up. I'll help out the committee. I mean, terms like moratorium on the sitting of any new drug rehabilitation, chemical dependency, give me a second, puppy, or treatment centers to be located within Manhattan. It doesn't sound like what some of the sentiments that was shared. And then second, I know there was some data points there that said we were going to fact check. So I guess once that's all done, then I can, like I said, I'll send a response formally.
Thank you, Jason. Any other questions?
Yeah, just quickly, Nelson. What has been the outreach to providers? Because Oasis is a state agency, right? And a state governmental agency that doles out money for, this would impact our community in terms of these small agencies that also serve the public. And have we spoken to them in the impact of not being able to expand services or hampering services, right?
Well, it's like anything, right? So it's my understanding that NIE and members of the committee have reached out to programs and started reviewing. And they just didn't start like last month. They had started prior to that. It's like anything, right? Those are questions that can be recommended. So the point is that the moratorium was sent out, right? The resolution was sent out. Questions are being brought up and concerns. Let's document what they are, the reasons why, right? Like what you're mentioning now, David. With any question, The question always has to come back. Is it community needs at this moment in time? If this community, so for instance, I've worked for the nonprofit for 22 years. I've kids, I've done summer youth, done adult programs, I've done the training programs, and yada, 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 right? Medicaid patients providers get paid more, reimbursed more for Medicaid patients and for services, certain services that they provide. If this community, if the community board does an assessment, and based on your knowledge and everything like that, this community needs services that we don't have. What are those services? And what, how do we come up with that? It is very easy to continually put out RFPs to continue to expand services. The question that we're gonna have to start trying to figure out is that what is needed for this community? I'll give you a scenario that someone gave me, someone from NYCHA. They stated to me that they see people from other communities come here and just loiter and sit and defecate and curse and loiter in front of their benches. And then they go home because they came to a program here. My thing to that person was, everybody has the right to service, right? We don't restrict service. We don't restrict Mount Sinai. We don't restrict Metropolitan. We don't restrict the service. The question this community board needs to answer and find out from Oasis is, if my brother is drug addicted and can't get into a program in East Harlem and resides in East Harlem, is that showing a need for a new program? Or is that showing the need that Oasis needs to look at this community and say, they have 25 drug treatment programs and they only service 15% of their community? You know what? Those drug treatment programs are going to be mandated to take more people from East Harlem and less citywide. That's a valid question to answer, which may not necessarily mean that more programs are needed. It may mean that the programs that are here need to service more people in this community and up their percentages. And I think that that's a fair question, that if programs are needed, we don't want to stop programs that are needed. What we need to assess is, are those programs actually needed? And if so, how did this community board get the information to validate that it is needed? Within these things that are being done, that is a valid question to ask the provider. What are services you wish you can offer now that can complement what you are doing now that you currently aren't funded for? That informs statement of district needs. This is not something that's going to be answered tonight. As a service provider, and for people who have experience in the field, such as you and Jason, you have a certain perspective because you are in trenches and you've worked in the trenches. So you see it from a holistic, humanistic point of view. Then there are people who have suffered.
Again, people that are referred to those drug treatment programs are referred from inpatient treatment centers, right? Often.
Right.
So if you have a treatment center, they go around the city. Who has an opening? Who gets that person in? They have times to get them out, or they can't discharge somebody. So, again, I want to make sure that we're really being fair in how we're addressing this issue, because when it happens, that gets played out in full board, people don't separate the issues of the substance abuse in the community between the oversaturation of drug treatment from the shelters that drop people off. There are a whole lot of magnitudes of different things. So,
and that's important that what you're saying, right? That comes from a different perspective, right? And that Jason, who has a different perspective, that voice is added when these deliberations are happening. So obviously, right, it doesn't seem like we're going to be taking any kind of a position tonight. There's concerns and questions we have to know. And this is something that can be brought up at full board. Your concerns that you want to bring up, or concerns that just are be brought up in general. It's very difficult to pick things which is in that topic in one night in one city. It is a process, right? But we have to have time to do the work also, because if we don't figure something out in a way that is a way that this community board can accept to put a pause, then we are never going to have the time to, if what we actually have, if more is needed, if different services need to be added, what is actually lacking. If we don't have the time to assess, we meet once a month. That means that a lot of work has to be done offline, or we have to take some type of position. So my suggestion, I'm not taking any position either or, because I have certain positions and I don't push. If you notice, I don't push. I argue both sides of the coin. What I am saying is that this community board has to realize that it needs the time to actually do that deep dive that you're talking about, that Zane is talking about, that discernment that Jason is talking about, in consideration with the community, their frustration, what they think they see, or what they actually know they see, right? You know, when you have NYCHA residents telling me that they're waking up with people that are in their stairwell that they didn't expect, that would drop off, right? So the idea is, how will this community board figure out how to buy that time so that the deep dive is done, there's actually informed decisions that we can then explain our position to the community at large. Because ultimately, we are responsible for the community. While we all have 50 individual viewpoints, collectively, our 50 viewpoints are supposed to help push forward the agenda of what the community has concerns and needs for. And so I'm going to stop it there, right? Because I can go on, and it's already 9:33. And I'm not trying to preach to the choir. What I am saying is that Human Services, this was Human Services' attempt to explain to the community that they hear what they're saying. And so, yes, we're gonna say no new programs right now because we have so many different programs. We need to assess what we got. Based on what our assessments and interviews are, we can better get a handle of what's here. We can see and identify people who have not been responsive to us, right? And then that's a separate conversation that can go on a list that can be discussed later on with OASIS. Engage OASIS. OASIS is now telling its providers that they have to come and have a conversation, an actual conversation with us, because they're interested in what we have to say. OASIS has actually used the word moratorium, that they are hearing that CB11, after all these years, is thinking of putting a moratorium on certain services or expressing an opinion on a moratorium. That has OASIS very uncomfortable, because for the first time, they're listening to what the East Harlem Community Board has to say, and not other community boards in other districts where they have been forced to listen to. Now this community board is stating, we too have an opinion. We too feel this way, whatever way it is. And we want you to listen to us before you just keep imposing on it. And I think the community is fed up. I think the community wants to see us do something, even if it's limited in scope, to say they're trying within the confines. And I think this was the attempt to try to start that conversation by taking a small general statement and not be so specific that you can't retract from. So with that, I'm going to see if there's any other. Xavier? You're the last one I see, so I'm gonna let you.
Well, yeah, I'll make it real quick, and then I'll let Angel say, just tie us off and send us home. I just want to say that, look, I feel the passion. We have a long series of questions because we've been reaching out to providers already, and this is one of many stages. It's just with drug rehabilitation programs. We've already been seeing the initial analysis that a lot of them are not predominantly serving our community as they should be. And again, this is to give us the opportunity to do the work. So we'll be taken seriously. So we can welcome people back and say, hey, you're here. Please provide for our community. That's what this is. And this is what we're hearing out.
What's the targeted percentage that we say that they're serving our community and that's enough?
But that is where we are going with the committee. So please come attend, David. I need your help with this. Because we need to set the barometer of what we expect going forward. But we can't set the barometer until we have that information. And that's information we don't.
Presented a lot of that information.
No, not every single provider has provided that. So that's the point, is that
even got statistics and presented it.
But we have to cross-check those. We have to cross-check with our own analysis, though, that we can't rely on someone else's data checking. It is incumbent upon us as an independent body to get our analysis separately. So that's why we have to do that. And we have to cross-check everything, because as with any
from a school that did a study.
So but we have to go and welcome them in, have those conversations before we take a carte blanche saying, and all of these extraneous positions. Anyway, I don't want to belabor.
I don't understand why we took a position already when you just say we have to find all these things out.
No, but can I finish? David, we said no new. We didn't say no existing. There's a difference. No new. We need to assess. We need to go through.
Does no new mean no new providers or no expansion of services? See,
does it say expansion?
I'm asking.
It does not say expansion. It says no new drug rehabilitation, dependency, or treatment centers. No new entities, not new expansion or services. This was discussed at committee specifically. So you're an OASIS program. If you needed to expand in your preventative nature, that was taken into consideration because of the conversations you've had. That, again, we took a holistic approach to this. This wasn't a carte blanche doing surgery with a hatchet. It was about new rehabilitation with drugs, chemical dependency, treatment centers. You see, there's no intervention services in there. It's new, not expansion. So again, that's the thing, is in reading it, it's very plain. But I want Angel to say something on this, because again, it's in the language. It was dropped here so we could have this discussion now, and and I'm sure some of us are probably hangry, or whatnot. But I think it's important to read the language as it is written in a Boolean expression and logic base. So Angel, please. You're muted. I'm going to get the sign up from Isabel where it says you're muted.
I said, I am perfectly zen. So this is to state the obvious, starting off by stating the obvious. This is an incredibly involved and complex topic. And frankly, the providers, the advocates, the opposition, all have to be willing to sit at the table and have the conversation in order for us to come up with something, useful and responsible. If I'm pro this, the hell with what you're saying, I'm pro this, right? And that's a real problem, right? And if I'm anti something, then the hell with what you're saying, what your concerns are. And when you're having this conversation, I've sat at this table so many times, and every time there's certain topics that you start the meeting and it's peaceful, everybody's friendly, and then, but not you guys, but then by the end of it, you're at each other's throats, right? Like if we have a conversation about NYCHA, all hell breaks loose. If we have a conversation about 125, all hell breaks loose. It's because it's complex. And like I said, stating the obvious, but to really get at the issue, we're going to have to put our egos aside, and we're going to have to listen to reason and have the conversations and have the difficult conversations, right? You will hear from a lot of people, and you have heard from a lot of people in the community that are just trying to live their lives and are dealing with all these complications, just getting to the train station, right? Climbing over a guy, evading somebody, somebody's pushing, somebody's shooting their kid, right? So somebody's responsible for that. And it's not them, they're just trying to get to the train. Those are some folks. Other folks are trying to run a business. Can't run the business because people are breaking into their store, hanging out in their store, passing out in their store, because they're dealing with all of their own individual challenges, but then bringing those challenges into your space where you're just trying to run a business, right? And you can go on and on and on and on and on. In order to have a productive conversation, you have to be willing to take your time and get uncomfortable for a long time. That does not mean that you have to be inactive, right? So is this stop or, a stay, asking for a stay? Like, we can't institute a moratorium, so we have to get the wording right. We're asking for a moratorium in our district. Is asking for a stay the end of the world? You can have your own opinions, right? But given the state's practice, should it be off the table completely? I would say it shouldn't be off the table completely, because the fact is that the state may engage with providers, but does not engage with the community board. Like, we just show up one day and someone's screaming at us because they put something next to my house. Why don't you do anything about it? I'm like, I didn't know. Right? Because we don't. We don't know. It just kind of appears. And for every quote unquote good provider, you have other ones that may provide challenges. Now, we also have to be self-critical. Have we engaged with all these providers in a meaningful at all? And have we done it in a meaningful way? We have to establish and maintain and sustain those relationships. That's the responsibility. Now, the reason that this item was put on the agenda was raised to your attention for this evening is that you represent all these different committees, and there are all these different viewpoints, not your individual viewpoints as you and a person, but individual as representatives of your committees, right? What are the public safety concerns? What are the health concerns? What are the impacts on youth? What are the social service concerns? That has to be on the table, and we have to be willing to have that conversation. Like, I've been at too many meetings where if people just kind of get locked into one thing, and then, somebody else's concerns just get completely swept under the carpet, and that's not cool. I feel uncomfortable. I'm not a provider and I don't have that history, but I get uncomfortable when I hear some of the things where people are just dismissive of people that are struggling. I'm like, what's wrong with you? But at the same time, I understand. I'm like, I'm just trying to come out my building, and I can't without being harassed by a whole bunch of people. And like, I appreciate that you're with me in spirit and supportive of people in struggle, but I'm just trying to get to the store, right? So like again, going back to that same example, it is so complex that it requires, we have to start off. And if we started, in my opinion, we started off the conversation clumsily. That's fine, but we started it. So I'm trying to find the good, right? We started it, and here we are talking, and what's before you this evening is better than what we had a couple of months ago. And can it be better? Sure. But it won't do anything if we don't start the conversation. And we have to be willing to remain engaged, not just with the outside bodies, but with each other as we continue the conversation on this and any topic, right? Like I don't know if Justice Committee has heard, but like, they've closed parks. They have closed parks because, like the drug, use in the park, daytime drug use has become so unbearable that, people can't use the park. And it's a shame. These poor souls are struggling with their addiction, but at the same time, this other poor soul just wants to take their kid to the park, right? And then people will say, well, whereby PEP officers? I'm like, you have like 2.5 PEP officers for the borough. Let's be serious. There's a couple of these people, and they may do a great job, but there's so many. There's a finite number. I should have probably said it's at 2.5. So sometimes you have to close it. And then in a community like ours, like, are we park rich? No, we're not. So when you close one, like, we're even poorer. So, and then we can continue on all these different angles. It is just so complex. So my advice, and what I plead that the board do is, now that we're in this space, like, stay in this space. and just keep having that conversation, keep having that heart to heart every month. You know, like it's not, Nilsa knows there's one thing we have disagreed with the whole entire time she's been chair. One thing, we agree 99% of the time. I'm not a moratorium proponent, but I understand this current recommendation. The previous one, but this one, okay, I'll at least, let's talk about it. You know, like there's some things that are just no-goes. You're like, well, wait, what are you doing? Don't do that. That's horrible. Like, please don't do that. You know, it's the times where I'm like, oh man, I don't get to vote, but you know, no, I just get to wave my hands. Anyway, those are my 10 cents.
No, well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the fair share thing. Like, you know, going further on the fair share, we're not consulted. And it's actually an expectation of the community of us, but we're not consulted. So if Oasis is at least acknowledging some feedback, that is news. The whole rest of the time, no one has gotten Oasis to the table. No one. You're like, oh, community board, no. State reps, nope, nobody. And now they're, you know, listening for whatever reason. Good. Well, then let's figure out what we got to say. But if we come to the table ill-prepared, then we lose the opportunity of that conversation.
So, yeah, thank you, Angel.
Yes, and
no, sorry.
you know, I'll tell you that we have had disagreements on more conversation. A lot of difference. But when I step back and I look at things, when I have to do something, I firmly problem and look at it and try to resolve there how I attempt the Human Services Committee to do that. Xavier has been on calls with me, and Angel has been with Oasis has been on the call, and Xavier has been the good cop, the bad cop. He's been very nice in his explanation, and I think it was last month. Got into Oasis because we actually laid out that we expect the information about the programs in this community. We will do our own assessment, and Oasis is upset with the word assessment. And I said, we have the right to look at the programs that you're bringing in and see if they work for our community. The way our assessment is obviously very different than your data-driven assessment, but we have the right to ask questions and come up with our own formula and what we think is beneficial. So this community board has to remember, like I said earlier, that we represent from 96th Street to 142nd Street, Avenue, to the Little Islands, all the way to the FDR Drive. And we have to look at that picture in totality, not just in sections, because we have to look at the homeless. We have to look at drug treatment programs. We have to look at services that are here. We have to look at where our people are dropped off and where they're picked up. What that does to the rest of the working community, because we are not a community of that drug treatment issues. We have individuals that have drug treatment, that have homeless issues, that have vacate issues, that have working people, that have property owners, that have students that strive. And we have to look in totality of programs and how it affects the community as a whole. And that was the attempt. This initial draft of trying to get something so that this community board is taken seriously and does the work it needs to do, so people are listening. We're not just going off of data that has been presented by others, that we are going off our own data in addition to supplementing with other people, which can only make our position stronger and not weaker. Xavier, you were gonna say something in closing?
No, just thank you. And I think what Angel expressed was we have to stay in this space, having this conversation. That's it. We're all trying to find a human-centric approach, and please come to the next Human Services Committee meeting. That's all I'm asking. I wish Nye would have been here. So thank you, Angel, for expressing that. Again, we just want to find a human-centric approach. This is just step one. And then we can continue working together. That's really where it is. I'm sure she'll have more to express at full board, but again, please come. I think it's the first Monday or second Monday of the month. So that's really it. And thank you, because we'll get there, and we have to do it in a respectful way, and we can do it. So, oh yeah, sorry now, because I'm just been up since 4:30. A year's worth of work to get Oasis here listening. You have, and Nils is right, the back and forth emails, getting the other politicians to go and deal with Zoraida. She's now having the conversations and showing up in the meetings. People have no idea what that lift was like. And we have that. And I think now it's the engagement period. So please, thank you for everyone. Your comments are taken in full respect and seriousness. So thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Nilsa, Jessica, Angel, Judith, and one of our members from the public who's still hanging on. So I respect and mucho amor.
So with that said,
Trying to keep it light and fluffy, Angel, that's all.
I got nothing
with
to
all
say.
the love, with all the love fest, and I know everyone is hungry, so I want to thank everyone for one staying on this long and for having an honest and fruitful discussion and bringing your viewpoints, your experience, and knowledge to this discussion. This is not the end tonight, but we have to remember that we are appointed because we have to, at every given moment, we have to represent every type of person in this community. We don't represent just one type of person in this community. I don't represent just seniors now, even though I'm 60, right? I think of youth, I think of everything. And we have to remember that in any discussions that we have to be able to try to rationalize and see all viewpoints, not just our own. And with that, if there are no more comments, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 9:53 p.m. Right?
Exactly an hour after you initially attempted to adjourn it. I have it in my
You
notes.
see that?
8:53, 9:53. Good night.
Good night, all. Stay
That was
home.
hilarious.
We love you too, Angel.
Right here.
Let's
All
go.
right.
I
The little
exacting.
things, Angel.
Yeah. So it's the little joys.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.